Welcome. I'm Magnus, and I bring you horror stories to help you relax, or maybe to keep you up at night. Tell us where you're from. Are there spooky forests nearby? If you're a fan of scary stories, subscribe and drop a like. Get cozy, and let's begin. I'm Daniel James Carter, 32 years old, and I live in Boise, Idaho. Life's been a grind lately. Work's eating me alive, and I needed a break bad. So, I figured, why not pack up my beat-up Jeep and head to Montana for some car camping? I've always loved the idea of sleeping in the back seat, windows cracked, with nothing but the wild around me. Montana's got those wide-open spaces that make you feel small, and I was itching to get lost in them. I roped in my buddy Travis. He's 28, a wiry guy with a loud laugh, lives just outside Boise, and his girlfriend, Mia, 26, who's quieter but tougher than she looks. We've been planning this for weeks, tossing around spots on a map like kids picking candy. The drive up was a blast. We blasted old rock tunes, windows down, the wind whipping through the Jeep as we crossed into Montana. I'd picked a spot near the Flathead National Forest, remote, rugged, perfect. There's this old fire lookout tower up there, perched on a ridge like a skeleton against the sky. I'd read about it online, figured it'd be cool to check out. Travis was all about it, cracking jokes about ghost stories, while Mia just smirked and scrolled through her phone. Me? I was just happy to ditch the city noise for a bit. The air smelled like pine and freedom when we finally pulled off the highway onto a dirt road. That first night, we rolled into the campsite around dusk. It's this little clearing, maybe a mile from the lookout tower, surrounded by thick trees that swallow the light. I parked the Jeep facing the forest, popped the tailgate, and we started unloading. Travis hauled out the cooler, packed with beers and hot dogs, while Mia rigged up a tarp for extra shade. I couldn't stop staring at that tower in the distance. It's got this eerie vibe, like it's watching you back. I brushed it off, though, too much coffee on the drive, probably. We were laughing, swapping stories about dumb stuff we'd done as kids, the fire crackling away. Setting up was easy enough. I turned the Jeep into my own little fortress, sleeping bag in the back, pillows shoved against the seats, a flashlight dangling from the ceiling. Travis and Mia had a tent, but they kept close to the car, saying it felt safer. Safer from what? I didn't ask. The stars were unreal out there, like someone punched holes in the sky. I leaned against the hood, sipping a beer, feeling the chills settle in. Montana's got this raw beauty that hits you hard, but there's something else too. A quiet that's almost too quiet, you know? Travis started yapping about park rangers, how they're always creeping around these woods, keeping an eye on folks like us. He said he'd seen one earlier, driving slow past the turnoff, but I didn't think much of it. Rangers are just part of the deal out here. Mia chimed in, saying she'd read about some weird disappearances in Flathead years back. Hikers gone without a trace. I laughed it off, told her she'd been on those creepy forums too long. Still, I caught myself glancing at the trees, wondering what's out there when the fire dies down. The lookout tower loomed bigger in my head as the night wore on. I could just make it out, a dark spike against the horizon. I'd planned to hike up there tomorrow, get a view, snap some pics, feel on top of the world. Travis was game, but Mia seemed off about it, fidgeting with her jacket. I didn't push her. We finished off the beers, the fire spitting embers into the dark, and I climbed into the Jeep to crash. The forest was dead silent. No crickets, no wind, nothing. It's weird how silence can feel loud sometimes. I woke up once, middle of the night, sweating despite the cold. Thought I saw something move near the tower, just a flicker, like a light blinking on and off. Rubbed my eyes, figured it was a dream messing with me. Travis and Mia were out cold in their tent, the tarp flapping a little. I rolled over, pulled the sleeping bag tighter, and told myself it's nothing. Montana's big, wild, and empty. Plenty of room for your mind to play tricks. Least, that's what I kept saying. Morning hit fast, sun slicing through the trees like a knife. I crawled out of the Jeep, stiff as hell, and started coffee on the camp stove. Travis was already up, poking at the fire, while Mia stretched and yawned. We were in good spirits, joking about who snored louder. The tower was still there, waiting, and I couldn't shake this itch to get closer. It's like it's pulling me in, daring me to climb up and see what's what. We ate quick, burnt toast, and instant oatmeal, then started packing for the hike. I grabbed my camera, Travis slung a backpack over his shoulder, and Mia tied her hair back, looking uneasy but not saying much. The plan was simple. Hit the trail, check out the tower, be back by lunch. Easy, right? That's how it always starts. Anyway, simple, until it's not. The trail to the lookout tower kicks my ass right out of the gate. It's steep, muddy, and choked with roots that snag my boots like they're trying to trip me up. I'm huffing along, camera bouncing against my chest, while Travis bounds ahead like a damn mountain goat. Mia's lagging, picking her way through the mess, her face tight. I call out to slow down, and Travis just grins, saying I'm getting old. Asshole. The air is thick with pine and damp earth, and every step feels like the forest's daring us to keep going. That tower's still up there, poking through the trees, and I can't tell if it's closer or just screwing with my head. About halfway up, the Jeep's keys slip out of my pocket. Dumb move, not zipping him in. I curse loud enough to scare off a bird, and Mia stops to help me look. We're digging through wet leaves, hands freezing, when she mutters something about this being a bad idea. I laugh it off, tell her it's just a hike, but she's got this look, like she's already checked out. Takes us 10 minutes to find the damn keys, buried under a rock. Travis yells down from ahead, asking what's taking so long, and I shout back to chill. My gut's starting to twist, though, not from the climb, but something else I can't pin down. We finally hit a clearing, and there's the tower, closer now, all rusted metal and peeling paint. It's creepy as hell up close, leaning a little like it might topple in a strong wind. I snap a few pics, trying to shake the weird vibe. Travis wants to climb it right away, but Mia's dead set against it. She says it looks unsafe, and honestly, she's not wrong. Those stairs are a tetanus shot waiting to happen. We argue for a bit, me playing peacemaker, until I suggest we just poke around the base instead. Compromise, right? Mia nods, relieved, but Travis grumbles like a kid who didn't get his way. Down at the tower's foot, there's this old sign, half buried in the dirt. Flathead Lookout, EST 1947. I brush off the grime, feeling a chill that's not from the wind. Travis finds a rusted padlock on the door, busted open, and starts joking about squatters or ghosts. I roll my eyes, but my skin's prickling. Mia's wandering off a little, staring into the trees, and I catch her whispering something to herself. I ask what's up, and she says she thought she saw a park ranger truck down the hill, way back by our campsite. I squint, don't see a damn thing, but now I'm wondering if someone's watching us. The tower's shadow stretches long across the ground, even though it's barely noon. I'm kicking around, looking for cool shots, when I spot something weird. Tire tracks, fresh ones, cutting through the mud near the trail. Not ours, that's for sure. The Jeep's parked a mile back. I point it out to Travis, and he shrugs, says maybe it's rangers checking the area. Yeah, maybe. But it's disturbing how they loop right up to the tower and then just stop. Like whoever drove up didn't bother driving back down. My brain's chewing on that, and I don't like the taste. Mia's getting antsy, keeps glancing over her shoulder like she's waiting for something to jump out. I try to lighten the mood, cracking a joke about Bigfoot, but it lands flat. She's not buying it, and honestly, I'm starting to feel off too. The forest's too still, no birds, no squirrels, nothing. Just us and that damn tower looming over everything. I suggest heading back to camp. Figure we can chill by the fire instead of pushing our luck up here. Travis groans, calls me a buzzkill, but Mia's already turning around, ready to bolt. On the hike down, I keep catching glimpses of the tower through the trees, like it's following us. My legs are screaming, and I'm kicking myself for not packing more water. Travis is quieter now, lost in his head, while Mia sticks close, her breathing shaky. I ask if she's okay, and she just nods, but her eyes say different. We're almost back when I notice my camera's strap's torn, must have snagged it up there. Great, one more thing going wrong. The Jeep's in sight now, parked where we left it, but something about the campsite feels off. Back at the clearing, I drop my gear and collapse against the car. Travis starts rummaging for snacks, and Mia sits on a log, staring at the ground. I'm trying to figure out what's bugging me when I see it. The tarp's down, shredded like something clawed through it. I call Travis over, and he whistles low, saying maybe a bear got curious. But there's no tracks, no scat, nothing. Just the tarp, ripped to hell. My stomach's doing flips now, and I can't shake this horror creeping up my spine. We're standing there, staring at the mess, when Mia gasps and points. Down the dirt road, maybe a quarter mile off, there's a flash of white. A truck, moving slow, then gone behind the trees. Ranger maybe? I squint, but it's too far to tell. Travis says it's probably nothing, but his voice cracks a little. I'm not so sure. Something's out there, and it's starting to feel like we're not as alone as I thought. Night slams down hard, the kind of dark that swallows everything. I'm sprawled in the Jeep, trying to get comfortable, but my brain's buzzing like a busted radio. Travis and Mia are in their tent, or what's left of it after that tarp got shredded. We patched it up with duct tape, but it's flimsy as hell. I keep replaying the day, the tower, those tire tracks, that truck flickering in the distance. My flashlight's dangling above me, casting jittery shadows on the ceiling, and I'm half convinced I'm just freaking myself out. Then I hear it, a low hum, like an engine idling somewhere close. I sit up fast, heart thumping, and peek out the window. Nothing but trees and black. I'm about to chalk it up to my imagination when the tent rustles. Travis stumbles out, hair a mess, eyes wide. He's whispering my name, urgent, like he's scared to wake something up. I crack the door, ask what's wrong, and he says Mia's gone. Just gone. Tent's empty, sleeping bag cold. My stomach drops like I'm falling off a cliff. I grab my boots, yank him on, and we start calling her name. Quiet at first, then louder, panic creeping in. The forest eats our voices, throws back nothing. It's horror movie quiet out here, and I hate it. We split up. Dumb, I know, but we're desperate. I head toward the dirt road, flashlight slicing through the dark, while Travis checks the trees near the fire pit. My beam catches something. Her jacket, snagged on a branch, torn at the sleeve. I snatch it up, yelling for Travis, and he barrels over, breathing hard. We're standing there, staring at this ripped-up jacket, when the hum kicks up again, louder, closer. Headlights flare through the woods, maybe 100 yards off, bouncing like someone's driving rough. I grab Travis, pull him behind the Jeep, and we crouch, watching. The truck rolls into view, white, beat to hell, no plates. It stops dead, engine growling, lights pinning us like deer. My mouth's dry, and Travis is gripping my arm so tight it hurts. Two guys climb out, big, shadowed, moving slow. One's got a flashlight, the other's holding something long. Axe, maybe? I can't tell, but it's disturbing as fuck. They're not rangers, that's for damn sure. No uniforms, no badges. They start toward the campsite, and I'm praying they didn't see us. My mind's screaming, where's Mia? What's happening? Why are they here? The taller one stops, sweeps his light over the Jeep, and I duck lower, heart slamming against my ribs. Travis whispers we should run, but I hiss at him to stay put. Running's a death wish with these guys this close. The light lingers, then moves off, and I hear boots crunching gravel. They're talking low, words I can't catch, but the tone's cold, sharp. Then, holy shit, one of them laughs, this guttural, nasty sound that makes my skin crawl. They head toward the tent, kicking at the patched-up tarp, and I realize they're looking for something. Or someone. I'm shaking now, trying to piece this together. Mia's jacket, the truck, these creeps. It's all wrong, scary wrong. I nudge Travis, point toward the trail to the lookout tower. It's our only shot. Hide up there, figure this out. He nods, pale as hell, and we creep out from behind the Jeep, keeping low. The guys are still poking around the tent, their backs to us, and we make it to the trees. My flashlight's off, and I'm blind, tripping over roots, but we keep moving. That hum's still in the air, vibrating through me, and I can't shake the feeling we're being hunted. We're halfway up the trail when I hear it. A scream, sharp and raw, cutting through the night. Mia, it's gotta be her. Travis freezes, and I grab him, yank him forward. My head's spinning. Did they find her? Is she hurt? What the hell's going on? The scream dies fast, replaced by that awful quiet again, and I'm fighting not to puke. We stumble toward the tower, its shape barely visible against the sky, and I'm praying it's empty, safe. But something tells me it's not. The stairs creak under us as we climb, rusty metal groaning like it's alive. Inside, it's pitch black, stinking of mold and rot. I fumble for my flashlight, click it on. Old maps, broken glass, a chair tipped over. And blood, fresh, smeared across the floor, trailing to the window. My knees buckle, and Travis gags, backing into the wall. There's a radio in the corner, crackling static, and I swear I hear a voice. Low, garbled, saying my name. But that's impossible, right? We're huddled there, staring at the blood, when the hum gets loud, too loud. Headlights flood the tower, blinding me through the cracked window. They're here. Those guys, that truck, they followed us. Doors slam below, boots hit the stairs, and I'm scrambling for anything. A weapon, a plan, something. Travis is muttering, "We're dead, we're dead." And I want to punch him, but he's right. Something's clearly wrong, and it's about to get a lot worse. The tower's shaking as those boots pound up the stairs, each step rattling my bones. I'm gripping a rusted pipe I found in the corner, best weapon I've got, and Travis is pressed against the wall, eyes wild. The door's flimsy, barely hanging on its hinges, and when it flies open, I swing hard. The pipe cracks against the first guy's arm, and he stumbles, cursing, but the second one's on me fast. He's huge, reeks of sweat and gasoline, and his fist slams into my gut. I double over, gasping, while Travis yells and tackles him from the side. It's chaos, grunts, crashes, my flashlight spinning across the floor. I'm scrambling to my feet, lungs burning, when the tall one grabs me by the jacket and hurls me against the window. Glass cracks behind me, cold air rushing in, and I'm staring into his face, scarred, blank, like he's done this 100 times. Travis is wrestling the other guy, but he's losing, blood trickling from his nose. I kick out, catch the tall one in the knee, and he staggers enough for me to break free. I shout at Travis to run, and we bolt for the stairs, shoving past the mess of fists and fury. My pipe's gone, but I don't care. Surviving's all that matters now. We're tumbling down those rickety steps, half falling, the tower groaning like it's about to collapse. Headlights glare below, the truck idling, and I hear one of them yell something about not letting him get far. My heart's a jackhammer. I'm thinking, Jeep, keys, get the hell out. We hit the ground running, legs pumping through the mud, and I'm praying those creeps are slower than us. The forest's a blur, branches clawing my face, but I don't stop. Travis is right behind me, wheezing, and I can hear boots crashing through the trees now. Too close. The campsite's in sight, the Jeep a lifeline glinting under the moon. I dig the keys from my pocket, hands shaking so bad I nearly drop him. Travis yanks the passenger door open, and I'm in the driver's seat, jamming the key in. The engine sputters. "Come on, you piece of junk," and finally roars to life. Headlights flick on just as the tall guy bursts from the trees, axe in hand, sprinting straight for us. I slam the gas, tires spinning in the dirt, and we peel out, gravel flying. He's swinging, close enough I hear the whoosh, but we're moving, fishtailing down the road. I'm white-knuckling the wheel, the Jeep bouncing like it's gonna flip, and Travis is yelling about Mia. Where is she? Did they get her? I don't know. Man, I don't know. The rear view's dark for a second, then headlights flare. Those bastards are chasing us. The truck's faster, gaining, and I'm weaving through trees, scraping the sides, anything to shake them. My mind's racing. Rangers, towers, blood, and I'm kicking myself for ever coming here. This is life and death, no joke, and I'm not sure we're winning. We hit a fork, and I swerve left, praying it loops back to the highway. The truck's right on us, bumper kissing mine, and I hear a thunk. Something hits the tailgate. Travis twists around, says it's the axe, stuck in the metal. Jesus. I'm flooring it, the engine screaming, and the road narrows, trees closing in. Then, thank God, a sign, Highway 2, 5 miles. If we can just make it, maybe we're safe. The truck rams us, hard, and I nearly lose control, tires skidding. My hands are slick with sweat, but I hold on, pushing the Jeep past its limit. The highway's close. I can see headlights in the distance, real ones, not theirs. The truck's still tailing, but it's lagging, maybe overheating or something. I'm muttering to myself, come on, like it'll help. Travis is gripping the dash, silent now, just breathing fast. We burst onto the pavement, tires squealing, and I gun it towards civilization, gas stations, people, anything. The truck slows, peels off down a side road, and I'm watching it vanish in the mirror, chest heaving. We're alive, but it doesn't feel like winning. I pull over a mile later, hands shaking too bad to drive straight. The Jeep's a wreck. Dents, scratches, that axe still lodged in the back. Travis looks at me, pale, and asks what the hell just happened. I don't have an answer, just a pit in my gut and Mia's name stuck in my throat. We're safe, sorta, but it's not over. Those guys, that tower, whatever they wanted, It's still out there, and I'm scared it's not done with us. I fumble for my phone, signal's weak, but I'm dialing 911 anyway. They're coming for us. I can feel it. I'm glancing at the trees, expecting headlights, axes, anything. The operator's voice crackles through, asking where I am, and I'm stammering out Flathead, near the lookout tower, when Travis grabs my arm. He's pointing at the axe, at something carved into the handle. Initials, maybe a symbol. It's too dark to read, but it's disturbing, like a promise. I'm telling the operator to hurry, but the line's cutting out, and I'm not sure anyone's coming. Cops show up 20 minutes later, lights flashing, radios squawking. I'm leaning against the Jeep, Travis pacing, both of us a mess, mud, blood, sweat. I'm trying to explain, words tumbling out. The tower, the truck, Mia gone, those guys with the axe. The officer's a grizzled guy, Montana tough, scribbling in a notepad. He says they'll check it out, sends a unit toward the campsite, but his eyes say he's heard crazy stories before. I'm begging him to find Mia, voice cracking, and he just nods, tells us to stay put. My phone's dead now, and I'm kicking myself for not charging it back in Boise. They tow the Jeep to a station in Kalispell. Evidence, they say. We're stuck there, sipping burnt coffee, while the night drags on. Travis keeps muttering about the blood in the tower, how it had to be Mia's, and I'm snapping at him to shut up, cause I can't handle it. I'm replaying every move. Should have stayed together, should have checked the tent, should have never gone up that damn trail. It's my fault, picking this spot, dragging them here. The horror's sinking in, heavy and cold, and I'm choking on it. Morning breaks, gray and mean, and a ranger rolls in. Real one this time, badge and all. He's got news, and it's bad. They found the campsite trashed, blood on the tent, but no Mia. The tower's empty now, no truck, no bodies, just that smear we saw, and it's human, all right. He's asking if we saw anything else, and I mention the truck, the axe, those initials. His face tightens, and he says they've had reports, missing hikers, weird sightings near that lookout. No proof, though just whispers. I'm slamming my fist on the table, yelling it's not whispers, it's real, and he just sighs. Travis is falling apart, crying now, saying we should have gone back for her. I'm thinking the same, but I know we'd be dead too. That's the tragedy. We ran, and she didn't. The ranger's radio crackles. Another unit found tire tracks, fresh ones, heading deep into Flathead. They're searching, but it's a needle in a haystack out there. I'm staring at the axe, locked in an evidence bag, and those carvings hit me. 2 letters, PR Park Ranger? Some sick joke? My head's spinning, and I'm sick with it. They let us go around noon, no charges, just pity. Travis calls his brother to pick us up, and we're sitting outside, silent, the Jeep impounded. I'm thinking about Mia, tough, quiet Mia, and how I'll never hear her laugh again. It's my mistake, pushing that hike, ignoring the signs. The cops say they'll call if they find her, but their voices are flat, like they've already written her off. I'm not that lucky. I know she's gone, and it's on me. We're heading back to Boise, crammed in Travis's brother's truck, and I'm staring out the window, Montana blurring past. The forest looks normal now, peaceful even, but I know better. Something's out there. Those men, that tower, maybe worse. I'm haunted, man, and it's not letting go. Travis won't look at me, and I don't blame him. We're alive, but it's a hollow win, stained with blood and regret. Back home, I can't sleep. Every creak's a footstep, every shadow's an axe swinging. I keep the lights on, checking the locks, like that'll fix anything. The news hits a week later. Another camper missing near Flathead, same spot. I'm not surprised, just sick. I call the station, leave a message about the axe, the initials, but no one calls back. It's over for them, but not for me. I'm digging online now, forums, old articles, disappearances, ranger rumors, that damn tower. There's a pattern, decades old, and I'm connecting dots no one else sees. Maybe I'm losing it, but I can't stop. Mia's out there, or what's left of her, and I owe her. I'm planning to go back, alone, armed, ready. It's stupid, probably deadly, but I can't live with this ghost in my chest. The last thing I find chills me. A photo, grainy, from the 70s. That lookout tower, and a truck parked beside it. White, no plates. 2 figures, blurry, standing there. I'm staring at it, heart pounding, when my power cuts out. The room's dark, silent, and I hear it. A hum, low and steady, outside my window. I grab a knife, step to the curtain, and pull it back. I'm Rachel Marie Ellison, 29 years old, and I live in Spokane, Washington. Life's been a treadmill lately. Work, bills, same old crap, and I needed to hit the reset button. So, I decided to pack up my trusty Subaru and head to Montana for some car camping. There's something about sleeping in the back of my car, hatch popped open, that feels raw and free, you know? I dragged my cousin Liam along. He's 25, a lanky dude with a goofy grin, lives in Coeur d'Alene, and his buddy Sasha, 27, who's all sharp edges and sarcasm. We've been hyping this trip for ages, plotting it out over beers and a beat-up map. The drive out's a mood lifter, windows down, music cranked, the highway stretching like it's begging us to chase it. I picked a spot near Glacier National Park, up by the Hungry Horse Reservoir. Remote, gorgeous, a little rugged. There's this old lookout tower nearby, stuck on a ridge like a forgotten watchman. I'd seen pics online, thought it'd be a cool detour. Liam's all about it, yapping about the views, while Sasha just shrugs, saying she's here for the booze. Me? I'm just stoked to ditch the city and breathe some mountain air. We roll into the campsite late afternoon, sun dipping low, painting everything gold. It's this little pull-off by the reservoir, trees hugging tight, water lapping soft in the distance. I park the Subaru facing the shore, pop the hatch, and we start unloading. Liam's hauling firewood, guy's obsessed with a good blaze, while Sasha cracks open a cooler, tossing me a soda. I can see the tower from here, a dark splinter against the skyline, and it's got this pull, like it's waiting for me to figure it out. We're laughing, messing around, the vibe easy and light. The setup's quick, sleeping bag in the car, pillows jammed against the seats, a lantern swinging from the roof. Liam and Sasha rig a tarp between some trees, claiming it's their VIP lounge. I'm leaning against the Subaru, sipping my drink, watching the reservoir shimmer. Montana's got this magic, man. It's big and quiet and makes you feel alive. But there's an edge to it too, something I can't quite name. Liam starts rambling about park rangers, how they patrol these parts, keeping tabs. I nod, half listening, eyes stuck on that tower. First night's chill, fire's going strong, popping and hissing, and we're roasting marshmallows like kids. Sasha's telling some dumb story about her ex, and Liam's cracking up, nearly falling off his log. I'm feeling good, loose, the stars punching through the sky like they're showing off. The tower's still out there, a shadow in the dark, and I mention maybe hiking up tomorrow. Liam's in, Sasha groans, but says she'll tag along. I'm grinning, thinking this is exactly what I needed. Friends, nature, a break from the grind. I crash in the Subaru around midnight, curled up with the hatch open, the cool air sneaking in. Liam and Sasha are under the tarp, snoring already, and I'm drifting off, the reservoir's soft slosh lulling me. But then I jolt awake, something's off. I sit up, rubbing my eyes, and scan the dark. The fire's down to embers, and the woods are dead quiet. No bugs, no breeze. My lantern's flickering, weak, and I'm squinting toward the tower when I see it. A light, faint, blinking up there. Once, twice, then gone. I'm blinking hard, telling myself it's nothing. Tired eyes, too much soda, whatever. I lie back, pull the sleeping bag tight, but my pulse is up. Liam mutters something in his sleep, Sasha shifts, and I'm trying to shake this creepy feeling. Probably just a ranger checking the tower, right? That's what I tell myself, anyway. I close my eyes, force my breathing slow, but that light's burned into my head now, nagging at me. Morning hits, sun slicing through the trees, and I'm groggy, dragging myself out of the car. Liam's already up, poking the fire, while Sasha's sprawled under the tarp, cursing the daylight. I start coffee, hands shaky from a crap night's sleep, and we're joking about who's the worst camper. The tower's still there, sharp against the ridge, and I can't stop glancing at it. That light's got me hooked. Curious. Yeah, but there's a twist in my gut too, something scary I can't shake. We scarf down some granola, pack light, water, snacks, my phone for pics, and decide to hit the tower. Liam's bouncing, ready to roll, while Sasha's grumbling, but slinging a backpack anyway. I lock the Subaru, double-check the keys, and we start up the trail. It's steep, rocky, and I'm already sweating, but that tower's pulling me in, daring me to see what's up. I'm chatting away, keeping it light, but deep down, I'm wondering if I should have left it alone. The trail to the lookout tower is a beast, loose rocks sliding under my boots, sweat stinging my eyes. I'm trudging along, phone swinging from a strap around my neck, while Liam powers ahead, whistling like this is a stroll in the park. Sasha's lagging, kicking pebbles and muttering about how she didn't sign up for this. I yell up to Liam to ease up, and he spins around, grinning, saying I'm too slow for 29. Jerk. The air's sharp with pine and dust, and that tower's peeking through the trees now. Closer, but still playing hard to get. We're maybe a mile in when my water bottle slips. Cap wasn't on tight, and half of it glugs into the dirt. I groan, loud, and Sasha snickers, tossing me hers like I'm a kid who can't handle basics. I take a swig, hand it back, and she's giving me this look, like she's already over this whole trip. Liam's stopped ahead, waving us on, but I'm starting to feel dumb for pushing this hike. My legs are whining, and that light I saw last night's gnawing at me. We keep going, though, stubborn, I guess. We're just too far to turn back. The tower's in full view when we hit a clearing, tall, weathered, listing a little to one side. It's got this spooky charm, like something out of an old movie, but up close, it's rough, paint chipped, windows murky. I snap a couple pics, trying to play it cool, but Liam's already eyeing the stairs, itching to climb. Sasha's not having it. She plants herself on a rock, says it looks like a death trap. She's right, those steps are rusted through in spots. I'm stuck in the middle, suggesting we just scope the base, but Liam's pout says he's not sold. Down below the tower, there's junk scattered. Old cans, a busted lantern, stuff that says people have been here. Liam kicks at a pile, joking about squatters, while I spot a faded sign. Beer paw lookout, EST 1952. My fingers brush the wood, and a chill hits me. Not the breeze, something deeper. Sasha's wandering off, peering into the trees, and I catch her freeze. She says she saw something move, big, fast, down by the reservoir. I squint, see nothing but shadows, but now I'm twitchy, wondering if it's a bear or worse. We're poking around when I notice scratches on the tower's legs. Deep, fresh, not claw marks but something else, like metal dragged hard. I point it out, and Liam shrugs, says maybe rangers were fixing stuff. But it's weird, man, disturbing, too random, too new. Sasha's pacing now, arms crossed, and I can tell she's done. The vibe's shifting, forest's too quiet, air's too still. I suggest heading back, figure we can chill by the car instead, and Liam grumbles, but gives in. Sasha's already moving, like she can't get away fast enough. The hike down's brutal, my knees are screaming, and I'm kicking myself for not bringing more snacks. Liam's quieter, lost in his head, while Sasha sticks close, her usual snark gone. I keep glancing back at the tower. It's like it's staring at us, daring us to stay away. We're almost to the campsite when Sasha trips, hard, and I grab her arm to steady her. She's fine, just pissed, but her shoe's untied, and I'm bending to help when I see it. My phone's screen, cracked, must have smashed on a rock. Perfect. One more thing going sideways. Back at the reservoir, I slump against the Subaru, wiped. Liam's digging in the cooler, and Sasha's sprawled under the tarp, nursing a soda. I'm trying to shake this off feeling when I notice the fire pit. Ashes scattered, logs tossed around, like something big rolled through. Liam says wind. Maybe, but there's no breeze now, and my gut's saying no way. It's creepy, how messed up it looks, and I'm starting to wonder what's out here with us. We're sitting there, catching our breath, when Liam squints down the road. He says he saw a truck, dark, beat up, crawling past the turnoff earlier, before we left. I didn't notice, but now I'm scanning, half expecting it to roll up. Nothing shows, but Sasha's on edge, saying she heard a ranger on the radio back home talking about weird stuff around Glacier, lost gear, trashed camps. I laugh it off, tell her she's paranoid, but my eyes keep drifting to the trees. The sun's dipping, shadows stretching long, and I'm feeling exposed, like we're on display. I'm fiddling with my busted phone, cursing the hike, when Sasha bolts upright. She's pointing across the reservoir. There's a light, same as last night, blinking slow from the tower. My stomach flips, and Liam's gaping too. It's no ranger, no trick of the eye. It's real, and it's watching. I'm telling myself it's nothing, but deep down, I know something's wrong. and it's just getting started. Darkness drops like a hammer, the kind that makes you feel small and stupid for being out here. I'm curled up in the Subaru, hatch open, lantern flickering like it's on its last legs. Liam and Sasha are under the tarp, passed out after too many beers, their snores cutting through the quiet. I'm wired, though. That blinking light from the towers stuck in my head, replaying like a bad dream. I'm staring out at the reservoir, water black as ink, when I hear it. A crunch, sharp, like boots on gravel. I sit up, heart kicking, and scan the dark. Nothing moves, but I'm not buying it. I'm about to shake it off when the tarp rustles. Liam stumbles out, bleary-eyed, asking if I heard that. I nod, whisper yelling for him to keep it down, and we're both listening hard. There's another crunch, closer, then a low scrape, like metal on rock. My skin's prickling, and I'm grabbing my flashlight, fumbling with the switch. Liam's already waking Sasha, who groans but sits up fast when she sees our faces. I sweep the beam around, trees, water, the car, and it lands on something glinting near the fire pit. A knife, big, stuck in a log. Wasn't there before. My stomach's a knot, and Liam's hissing that we need to check it out. I'm like, hell no, but he's already creeping over, Sasha tailing him with her phone's light. I follow, cursing under my breath, and up close, it's worse. Blades notched, handles wrapped in duct tape, and there's a smear on it, dark, wet. Blood? I'm gagging, telling them we're out of here, but Sasha's frozen, pointing across the reservoir. That light's back, steady now, not blinking, pinned right on us. It's horror movie real, and I'm done pretending it's nothing. We're scrambling back to the car when headlights flare. Yellow, harsh, cutting through the trees down the road. A truck rumbles into view, dark, dented, grill like a snarl. It stops, idling loud, and two shapes climb out. Big guys, moving slow, deliberate. One's got a flashlight, beam jerking around, and the other's holding something. Crowbar, maybe, hard to tell. They're not talking, just heading our way, and my brain's screaming. Rangers don't move like that, don't feel like that. Liam's yanking at the tarp, saying we should hide, but I'm shaking my head, too late. The beam hits the Subaru, and I duck behind it, pulling Liam and Sasha down with me. My heart's hammering so loud I'm sure they'll hear it. The guys are closer now, boots crunching, and I catch a whiff of something sour, sweat, oil, worse. One of them stops by the fire pit, kicks the knife free, and I hear it clatter. The other grunts something low, and they split, one toward the car, one toward the trees. Sasha's whimpering, Liam's gripping my arm, and I'm whispering we've got to move now. We crawl along the Subaru's side, keeping low, aiming for the trail to the tower. It's dumb, yeah, but it's all I've got. Hide up there, wait him out. My flashlight's off, and I'm blind, tripping over roots, but we make it to the brush. The truck's still growling, headlights painting the campsite yellow, and I hear one of them laugh. Short, mean, like he knows we're close. My chest's tight, and I'm thinking about that knife, that blood, wondering who they've already found. The tower's a black spike ahead, and we're hauling ass, legs burning. Halfway up, Sasha gasps, says she saw something by the reservoir, a shape, crumpled. I don't look, can't, just keep pushing. The stairs loom, rusted and shaky, and we climb, metal creaking under us. Inside, it's a wreck, dust, broken boards, a stale stink. My beam catches a wall, scratch marks, fresh, like someone clawed at it. Liam's muttering about the light, how it's gone now, but I'm not listening. There's a bag in the corner, torn open, spilling clothes I don't recognize. We're crouched by the window, breathing hard, when the truck's engine revs, loud, angry. Headlights swing up the trail, pinning the tower, and I'm shoving Liam and Sasha down, out of sight. Boots hit the ground below, heavy, and I hear a voice, raspy, close, saying they're here. My blood's ice, and I'm gripping a loose plank, ready to swing if they climb. Sasha's shaking, whispering about the shape she saw, how it looked human, and I'm telling her to hush, but my mind's racing. Was it someone else, someone they got first? The stairs groan. Someone's coming up, slow, deliberate. My flashlight's trembling in my hand, beam darting, and I catch a glimpse through the floorboards, a shadow, big, moving. Liam's eyes are huge, Sasha's biting her lip bloody, and I'm thinking this is it. Something's clearly wrong, scary wrong, and we're trapped. The steps stop, right below us, and I hear breathing. Deep, steady, like a predator waiting. I'm holding my breath, praying they turn back, but deep down, I know they won't. The tower's floorboards creak under me, and that breathing below stops, dead quiet, like the guys listening back. I'm clutching the plank, sweaty palms slipping, while Liam and Sasha huddle behind me, barely breathing. Then, bam, the stairs shake, boots pounding up fast. I swing as the door bursts open, catching the first guy in the chest. He grunts, staggers, but the second one's through, crowbar raised. Liam tackles him, wild, and they crash into the wall, wood splintering. I'm yelling, swinging again, and connect with the first guy's shoulder. He drops, cursing loud. Sasha's screaming now, scrambling for the stairs, and I grab her arm, yanking her back. We're not splitting up. The crowbar guy's got Liam pinned, but I kick his leg hard, and he buckles. Liam scrambles free, blood on his face, and we're bolting past them, down those rickety steps. My plank's gone, tumbling somewhere, and the tower's groaning like it's pissed we're still alive. Headlights blind me below. The truck's right there, engine snarling, and I hear one of them yell, "Get him!" My gut's ice, but I'm running anyway. We hit the ground, legs pumping, aiming for the Subaru. The trail's a blur, rocks, roots, my flashlight bouncing uselessly in my hand. Liam's limping, Sasha's sobbing, but we don't stop. The truck revs, tires spinning, and I know they're coming. I'm digging for the keys, fumbling in my pocket, praying I didn't drop him. The campsite's ahead, tarp shredded, cooler smashed, and I'm at the car, jamming the key in. Sasha dives into the back, Liam's in the passenger seat, and I'm turning the ignition. It sputters. "Come on, don't do this," and finally roars. Headlights flood my rear view. Trucks barreling down the trail, gaining fast. I slam the gas, the Subaru fishtailing on gravel, and we're off, bouncing hard. One of them leans out the truck's window, swinging that crowbar, and it smacks the hatch. Glass cracks, Sasha shrieks. I'm swerving, tires screaming, trying to keep us alive. Liam's yelling directions. Left, right, anything. But I'm just driving, trees whipping past, praying for a road out. This is it. Man, life and death. No brakes, no mercy. The reservoir flashes by, dark and endless, and I'm thinking about that shape Sasha saw. Someone else they got, maybe. My hands are slick, while jerking, and the truck rams us, hard. The Subaru lurches, I fight to straighten it, and I see a sign. Highway 2, 3 miles. Hope, maybe, if we can hold on. They ram again, metal crunching, and I hear the hatch give. Glass shatters, raining into the back. Sasha's curled up, covering her head, and I'm shouting at her to hang on, like that'll fix this horror. I'm pushing the car past its limit, engine whining, and the highway's close. Lights flickering through the trees, real ones, not theirs. The truck's still on us, relentless, but I swerve sharp, scraping a pine, and they overshoot, skidding. I gun it, tires hitting pavement, and we're on Highway 2, speeding towards civilization. Gas pumps, people, safety. The truck slows, peels off down a side road, and I'm watching it fade in the mirror, chest heaving. We're alive, barely, but it's not over. I can feel it. I pull over a mile out, shaking so bad I can't grip the wheel. The Subaru's trashed, dents, broken glass, a crowbar dent in the bumper. Liam's wiping blood from his lip, Sasha's rocking in the back, muttering about that shape. I'm fumbling my phone, cracked screen, one bar, and dial 911, voice shaking as I spill it. Tower, truck, knife, everything. The operator's calm, too calm, saying help's coming, but I'm scanning the dark, expecting those headlights to flare again. Cops roll up fast, lights cutting the night, and I'm leaning on the car, trying to breathe. Liam's pacing, Sasha's blank, and I'm telling the officer, a wiry guy with tired eyes, everything. He's nodding, jotting notes, says they'll check the tower, the campsite. I'm begging him to hurry, thinking about that bag, those clothes, and he just pats my shoulder, tells us to wait. My phone's dying, and I'm kicking myself for not charging it. Dumb move? Rachel, real dumb. They're towing the Subaru. Evidence, they say, and we're stuck on the roadside, watching taillights vanish. Liam's quiet, Sasha's shivering, and I'm replaying it all. Should have stayed put. Should have locked the car. Should have never come. The officer's radio crackles. Units at the tower. Found something. and I'm straining to hear, but he steps away. I'm left with this pit in my gut, knowing whatever's out there isn't done with us yet. We're hauled to a station in Columbia Falls, sipping stale coffee, wrapped in blankets that smell like mothballs. I'm rattling off the story again. Knife, truck, tower, to a detective this time, a woman with sharp eyes. She's scribbling fast, asks about the shape Sasha saw, and I stumble, saying we didn't stop to look. Liam's pacing, muttering about the blood on that knife, how it's someone's, and Sasha's just staring at the floor, shut down. My head's pounding, guilt, fear, all of it, and I'm hating myself for picking this spot. They keep us till dawn, gray light creeping in, and a ranger shows up. Real deal, uniform crisp. He's got news, and it's grim. Campsite's a wreck, blood on the tarp, tracks everywhere, but no bodies. The tower's got those scratches, that bag, and a smear of something. Human, they think. He's asking if we saw anyone else, and I shake my head, but Sasha whispers about the shape again, how it was near the water. The ranger's face hardens, says they've had reports. Campers vanishing, weird activity near Hungry Horse. No proof, just rumors. But I'm slamming the table, yelling it's not rumors, it's real. Liam's breaking now, tears streaking his dirt-smeared face, saying we should have gone back for whoever that was. I snap at him, go back and die, but he's right, and it's killing me. My mistake was pushing this trip, ignoring that light, dragging us into this mess. The ranger's radio buzzes. Search team found a shoe by the reservoir. Woman's, not ours. My stomach flips. Someone else, caught before us, and we didn't help. The detective says they'll keep looking, but her tone's flat, like it's already over. They let us go mid-morning, no car, no answers. Liam calls his mom to pick us up, and we're outside, silent, the wind biting. I'm thinking about Sasha's silence, Liam's bloodied face, that shoe. Someone will never know. It's a tragedy. Man, we got out, but someone didn't, and it's on me. The cops promise updates, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm haunted, staring at the mountains, knowing they're hiding something sick. Back in Spokane, I'm a wreck, can't sleep, can't eat. Every shadow's a truck, every noise is boots on gravel. Liam's not talking to me, Sasha's gone dark, and I'm alone with this weight. The news drops a week later, another disappearance near Hungry Horse, same pattern. I'm not shocked, just numb. I call the station, leave a voicemail about the knife, the truck, but it's crickets. They've moved on, but I can't. I'm online now, digging, old forums, grainy photos, tales about Glacier. There's whispers, rogue rangers, drifters, something worse, and I'm piecing it together, obsessed. That tower's in my dreams, that light blinking, and I'm planning to go back. Crazy, yeah, but I need answers, for Sasha's shape, for us. I'm loading a backpack, knife, flashlight, pepper spray, when my power flickers. I freeze, listening. It's quiet, too quiet, and then I hear it. A low hum, faint outside. My heart's in my throat, and I'm at the window, peering through the blinds. Nothing moves, but the streetlight's flickering, and I'm gripping the knife, thinking about that shoe, that bag. I'm telling myself it's nothing, but my gut knows better. Whatever's out there followed me home. Days later, I'm driving back to Montana, alone, radio off. The reservoir's ahead, shimmering like it's mocking me, and I'm parked, staring at the tower. It's still there, waiting, and I'm stepping out, boots on gravel, ready or not. I'm halfway up the trail when I see it. A dark truck, tucked in the trees, engine off. My breath catches, and I'm turning back, fast, but the hum starts, low, close, and I know I've screwed up again. I'm running, keys shaking in my hand, when something moves ahead, big, fast, cutting me off. I stumble, drop the knife, and it's on me. Shadow, wait, a raspy laugh. The last thing I see is the tower, lit up, blinking slow, like it's saying goodbye. My name is James Anthony Bennett, and I have 28 years old. I live in Seattle, working as a software developer for a tech startup that's been slowly draining my soul for the past 3 years. The constant pressure, deadlines, and the never-ending cycle of debugging other people's mistakes had pushed me to the edge. I needed an escape, something to reconnect me with the world outside of screens and artificial light. That's when my college buddy, Marcus, suggested we take a camping trip to Montana's Bitterroot National Forest. Marcus had always been the adventurous type, the kind of guy who'd jump off a cliff into water without checking the depth first. But that's why I liked him. He pulled me out of my comfort zone. He'd been talking about this specific spot near a historic fire lookout tower for months. Apparently, his uncle had worked as a park ranger there in the 90s and told him stories about how beautiful and isolated it was. Perfect for clearing your head, he said. We planned a car camp, converting Marcus's old Subaru Outback into our mobile shelter. The plan was simple: drive to Montana, spend 5 days in the wilderness, and return as refreshed human beings. 2 other friends joined our little expedition: Eliza, a nurse with a sardonic sense of humor who'd recently gone through a nasty breakup, and Dean, a high school teacher who collected ghost stories from every place he visited. The drive from Seattle to Montana was long but stunning, with the landscape gradually transforming from dense evergreen forests to the majestic, rugged terrain of the Bitterroot Mountains. We arrived at the forest entrance just as the afternoon sun was beginning to sink behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows across our path. A weathered park ranger named Harlan greeted us at the checkpoint, his deeply lined face suggesting years of exposure to the elements. "You folks planning on staying near the old Black Rock Lookout Tower?" Harlan asked, examining our permit with unusual scrutiny. When Marcus confirmed, the ranger's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "That's a mighty fine spot. But a word of advice: stay on the marked trails, especially after dark. We've had some issues with hikers getting lost this season." The way he hesitated made my stomach tighten, but I brushed it off as typical ranger caution. The road to our camping spot grew increasingly rough as we ascended, forcing Marcus to navigate around potholes and jutting rocks that threatened to tear at the Subaru's undercarriage. The forest around us grew denser, the trees pressing close to the narrow dirt road like silent spectators. As we rounded the final bend, the lookout tower came into view, a weather-beaten structure perched atop a rocky outcrop, its windows reflecting the dying sunlight like winking eyes. We parked in a small clearing about half a mile from the tower, a spot that offered both privacy and a breathtaking view of the valley below. The air was noticeably cooler here, carrying the scent of pine and something else I couldn't quite identify, something earthy and ancient. As we began unpacking the car, transforming the Subaru into our sleeping quarters, and setting up our cooking area, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched from the dense tree liens surrounding our camp. Dean noticed my unease and slapped me on the back. "City boy getting spooked already? Wait till I tell you about the disappearances that happened here in the 70s. 3 separate hiking groups, all gone without a trace." I forced a laugh, but secretly wished he'd save his ghost stories for daylight hours. As night fell rapidly around us, the forest came alive with sounds: the hooting of owls, the rustling of small animals in the underbrush, and occasionally, something larger moving through the trees further away. I told myself it was just deer or elk, but part of me wasn't convinced. The first night passed uneventfully, though I slept fitfully, and used to the hard surface of the folded-down seats and the constant symphony of forest sounds. I awoke before the others, my breath visible in the early morning chill. Deciding to make myself useful, I grabbed our water containers and headed toward the small stream Marcus had spotted on our map, about a quarter mile from camp. The forest felt different in the pale morning light, less threatening, but somehow more mysterious. I followed a faint trail through the underbrush, noting how the dew-laden spider webs glistened between branches like intricate silver artwork. When I reached the stream, I knelt to fill our containers with the crystal-clear water. That's when I noticed them, footprints in the soft mud of the bank. They were human-sized but oddly shaped, with elongated toes and no clear heel mark. They approached the stream from the opposite direction, but strangely, there were no prints showing where they had left. Back at camp, I mentioned the strange footprints to the others as we prepared breakfast. Dean immediately launched into another one of his stories, something about a reclusive trapper who reportedly went mad in these woods decades ago and was rumored to still roam the area. Eliza rolled her eyes, but Marcus seemed unusually interested, asking detailed questions about exactly where I'd seen the prints. "Let's check out that lookout tower today," he suggested, changing the subject abruptly. "My uncle said the view from up there is incredible. The hike to the tower took longer than expected, with the trail becoming increasingly overgrown and difficult to follow. At several points, we had to consult our map and compass, as the dense canopy overhead made GPS signals unreliable. The tower itself stood about 60 feet tall, its weathered wooden structure seeming to sway slightly in the wind. The staircase spiraling around its exterior looked ancient and precarious, with several steps missing entirely. "Are we sure this is safe?" Eliza asked, voicing my own concerns. Marcus insisted it was fine. His uncle had climbed it just last year, but something about the structure filled me with dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were trespassing in a place we weren't meant to be. Nevertheless, we began our ascent, the old wood creaking ominously beneath our weight. The view from the top was indeed spectacular, miles of unbroken forest stretching to the horizon, with snow-capped peaks rising in the distance. The small room at the top of the tower was dusty but intact, containing an old desk, a broken chair, and a logbook that appeared to have been abandoned mid-entry. The last date recorded was from 8 years ago, the final message trailing off mid-sentence, something moving below the trees. Unlike anything I've ever. As we were examining the logbook, a sudden, piercing scream echoed through the forest, causing all of us to freeze. It sounded human but distorted, filled with a note of primal terror that made my hair stand on end. "What the hell was that?" Dean whispered, his usual bravado completely gone. We rushed to the windows, scanning the endless green canopy below us. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then, just for a moment, I spotted movement, something large moving through the trees about half a mile from our position, heading in the direction of our camp. "We need to get back," Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. The descent was hasty and dangerous, with all of us nearly slipping on the weathered steps. By the time we reached the ground, the forest had fallen unnaturally silent. No birds, no insects, as if everything was holding its breath. We hurried back toward camp, the silence broken only by our labored breathing and the occasional snap of a twig beneath our boots. When we finally reached our clearing, everything seemed untouched. The Subaru sat exactly as we'd left it, our cooking equipment still arranged neatly on the folding table. But something felt off. It took me a moment to realize what it was. Our cooler, which we'd secured in a tree to keep away from bears, was on the ground, its contents scattered across the clearing. "Could be raccoons," Eliza suggested, but we all knew that was unlikely. The rope had been cut, not chewed through, and the cooler itself had deep gouges in its plastic surface, as if someone, or something, had taken out their frustration on it with a sharp implement. As darkness fell on our second night, tension hung in the air like a physical presence. We'd spent the afternoon debating whether to leave or stay, ultimately deciding that driving down the treacherous mountain road in the dark posed more immediate dangers than whatever might be lurking in the forest. We built our campfire larger than necessary, the crackling flames providing both warmth and a sense of security that was probably more psychological than real. Dinner was a subdued affair, with conversation repeatedly returning to the strange events of the day. Dean, surprisingly, had stopped telling his ghost stories, instead becoming unusually quiet and alert, his eyes constantly scanning the darkened tree lane. I called my uncle, Marcus finally admitted as we huddled around the fire, about what we found at the tower and the scream. We all leaned in closer. He said he's never actually been inside the tower. It was officially closed to the public 15 years ago after a park ranger was found dead at the base, supposedly fell from the top, but the injuries weren't consistent with a fall. A cold shiver ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "Why didn't you tell us this before?" Eliza demanded, her voice sharp with fear and anger. Marcus looked genuinely regretful. "I thought it was just another one of his exaggerated stories. He tends to embellish things. But now I'm not so sure." The fire popped loudly, sending a shower of sparks into the night sky, and all four of us jumped. That's when we noticed the smell, a putrid, rotting odor wafting through our campsite, like decomposing meat mixed with something musky and animal. Dean was the first to see it, a shadow darker than the surrounding night, moving with deliberate slowness just beyond the reach of our firelight. "Guys," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "don't make any sudden movements. Look over there." We turned, following his gaze, and my heart nearly stopped. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a figure that at first glance appeared human, but wrong somehow. Its proportions slightly off, its limbs too long and jointed in places they shouldn't be. It stood perfectly still, watching us with eyes that reflected our firelight like a nocturnal animal's. For what felt like an eternity, no one moved. Then Marcus slowly reached for his backpack, where I knew he kept a hunting knife. The figure's head snapped toward him with unnatural speed, and it emitted a low, rattling sound that might have been an attempt at speech. "We don't want any trouble," I said, my voice shaking embarrassingly. "We're just camping here for a few days." The figure tilted its head, like a dog trying to understand human words, then took a single step forward into the light. What we saw defied explanation. It had the basic shape of a man but was covered in what looked like patches of bark and moss. Its skin were visible mottled and discolored. Parts of a park ranger uniform hung in tatters from its emaciated frame, a tarnished badge still pinned to a shred of shirt. Its face was the worst, human features distorted as if they'd been melted and reset incorrectly, with a mouth that extended too far across its face. It raised one elongated hand, fingers ending in what looked unsettlingly like wooden claws, and pointed directly at Marcus. "Thomas sent you," it said, the words garbled but unmistakable. Marcus went pale. Thomas was his uncle's name. He promised no more would come. The creature took another step forward, and we all instinctively backed up. "This is my forest now, my tower, mine to protect." It moved with uncanny speed then, crossing the clearing in a blur of motion that sent us scrambling in different directions. I heard Eliza scream as the thing seized her backpack, ripping it from her shoulders with such force that she fell hard to the ground. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire, waving it wildly as I moved to help Eliza. The creature hissed at the flames, retreating momentarily, its inhuman eyes reflecting hatred and something else, fear. "Fire," Dean gasped, grabbing his own flaming brand. "It's afraid of fire." Marcus helped Eliza to her feet, while Dean and I formed a barrier with our makeshift torches. The thing paced at the edge of the firelight, making that terrible rattling sound again before suddenly darting back into the darkness of the forest with unnatural speed. We stood frozen, our hearts pounding, straining to hear any sound of its return. After several minutes of tense silence, we hurriedly gathered our essential belongings. "We need to get out of here," Marcus said, his voice hollow with shock. "Right now." No one disagreed. We piled into the Subaru, not bothering to properly pack anything, and Marcus turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. He tried again with the same result. When he popped the hood and shined a flashlight inside, we all saw the problem. Vital components had been torn out, wires severed, and deep gouges marked the metal, as if claws had raked through the engine block itself. "We have to walk out," Dean said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "It's about 15 miles back to the ranger station. If we stick to the road and keep moving, we can make it by morning." It seemed like our only option, but the thought of traveling through the dark forest with that thing hunting us filled me with indescribable dread. We gathered only what we could carry: water, some food, flashlights, and anything that could serve as a weapon. Marcus had his hunting knife, Dean a hatchet from our firewood kit, Eliza a can of bear spray, and I clutched a heavy metal flashlight that could double as a club. We set out on the dirt road, our small circle of flashlight beams barely penetrating the oppressive darkness. The moon had risen, but its light barely filtered through the dense canopy above. We walked four abreast, constantly scanning the forest around us, jumping at every snapped twig or rustling leaf. For the first hour, we made good progress, the adrenaline keeping fatigue at bay. But slowly, an unsettling awareness grew. The forest sounds around us had changed, moving in patterns that seemed to match our own movement, as if we were being paced on both sides. "It's hurting us," Eliza whispered suddenly, stopping in her tracks. "Like a sheepdog with sheep." The realization hit us all simultaneously. We were being guided away from the road, our path subtly altered by the sounds and movements around us. We'd been so focused on the sides of the road that we'd failed to notice how it had narrowed, gradually transforming from a dirt track into what was now little more than a game trail. The towering trees pressed in closer than before, their branches creating a tunnel-like effect that seemed to lead deeper into the heart of the forest. "We need to turn back," I insisted, fighting against rising panic. Find the actual road again. As we turned, a blood-curdling scream, the same inhuman sound we'd heard earlier, echoed from the direction we'd been heading, followed immediately by an identical cry from behind us. "There's more than one," Dean gasped, his face ghostly in the flashlight's glow. "They're all around us." As if to confirm his worst fears, we began to see them, multiple sets of reflective eyes glinting from between the trees, surrounding us completely. Marcus made a split-second decision. "The tower," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "It's closer than the road now. We can barricade ourselves inside until morning." None of us liked the idea of returning to that ominous structure, but it was the only defensible position nearby. We changed direction, moving as quickly as we dared through the underbrush, guided by the tower's silhouette occasionally visible through breaks in the canopy. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, branches snapping, that distinctive rattling vocalization, and sometimes what sounded disturbingly like words in hoarse, disused human voices. The tower loomed before us, a dark sentinel against the night sky. We reached the clearing around its base, only to freeze in collective horror. Arranged in a perfect circle around the tower were objects I initially mistook for oddly shaped logs. As we drew closer, the sickening truth became clear. They were bodies, or what remained of them, each one propped in a sitting position facing the tower. Some were recent enough to recognize as human, while others had decayed into little more than clothing-draped skeletons. Most disturbing were the oldest ones, where the forest seemed to be literally consuming the remains. Fungus and moss growing over bones, small saplings pushing up through rib cages, as if the forest were incorporating these offerings into itself. "Jesus Christ," Eliza breathed, raising a hand to her mouth. There must have been at least a dozen bodies, representing years of missing hikers and campers. I spotted a park ranger's hat on one of the more recent ones and felt bile rise in my throat. We had seconds to process this grotesque scene before movement at the forest's edge spurred us into action. We sprinted for the tower stairs, taking them two at a time despite their precarious condition, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind us. We reached the room at the top, slamming the door shut and dragging the heavy desk against it as a barricade. The single room offered no other entrances except for the windows on all four sides, giving us a 360-degree view of the clearing below. What we saw made my blood run cold. At least 5 of the creatures had emerged from the forest, all bearing that same disturbing resemblance to park rangers, though in various states of transformation. Some appeared newer, more human, while others had progressed further into whatever horrific metamorphosis was occurring, their limbs elongated and wooden, bark-like growths covering large portions of their bodies. They moved around the tower with practiced coordination, 2 remaining at the base while others began to climb. Their movements were spider-like, fingers and toes digging into the wood with impossible strength. "Block the windows," Marcus shouted, and we rushed to comply, using the broken chair and anything else we could find. A misshapen hand slammed against one window just as Dean managed to secure a board across it, the glass cracking but holding. We worked frantically, securing each opening just moments before our pursuers reached it. For a brief, hopeful moment, it seemed we'd created a defensible position. Then we heard it, a heavy thudding from above. "The roof," Eliza whispered, her voice breaking. We looked up to see the ceiling boards bending inward as something heavy moved across them. Dust and debris rained down as claws began to tear through the aged wood. We huddled in the center of the room, weapons raised, as a section of the ceiling splintered and a writhing mass of branch-like fingers reached through. Dawn was approaching. I could see the faintest lightening of the sky through the cracks in the boarded windows. We'd been fighting for our lives through the night, managing to repel each breach of our defenses, but growing increasingly exhausted. My arms ached from wielding the heavy flashlight, now dented and smeared with a dark, sap-like substance that oozed from our attackers when struck. Dean had been injured, a deep gash across his shoulder where one creature had managed to reach through before we drove it back. Eliza had used almost all of the bear spray, the caustic cloud proving temporarily effective at driving the things back. "They're slowing down," Marcus observed during a brief lull in the attacks. He was right. The assault had become less coordinated, the creature's movements more sluggish as the darkness receded. Maybe they can't function as well in daylight, I suggested, clinging to any hope. The theory made sense. Even normal forest rangers spent most of their time in the shade of the canopy. These corrupted versions might be even more sensitive to sunlight. As the first direct rays of morning sun pierced through the cracks in our makeshift barricades, an unearthly howling arose from the creatures below, followed by the sound of multiple bodies crashing through underbrush. Looking cautiously through a small gap, I saw them retreating to the deep shadows of the forest, moving with urgency now rather than predatory patience. They're running away, I reported, almost dizzy with relief. The sun's driving them back. We waited another hour to be certain, then cautiously removed the desk from the door. The descent down the tower's exterior staircase was tense, each of us expecting an ambush despite the now bright morning light flooding the clearing. The bodies we'd seen arranged around the tower the previous night were still there, a grim reminder that our ordeal had been no nightmare. In the daylight, I could now see details I'd missed before. The unnatural way the forest seemed to be growing into and through the remains, the oldest bodies so integrated with the landscape that they were almost indistinguishable from it. "We need to report this," Dean said, clutching his injured shoulder. "People need to know what's happening here." We all agreed, though none of us could quite articulate what exactly was happening. Park rangers transforming into forest creatures? The forest itself somehow consuming people? Either possibility seemed too fantastical, yet the evidence surrounded us. We set off immediately, following the sun to maintain our direction, determined to find the proper road back to civilization. The forest in daylight seemed almost mockingly peaceful, birds singing, squirrels chattering, sunlight dappling the forest floor through the canopy. After several hours of tense hiking, we finally reached the dirt road that would lead us back to the ranger station. Our relief was palpable, everyone's pace quickening despite our exhaustion. The ranger station appeared ahead, a small wooden building with a Park Service vehicle parked outside. As we approached, a ranger stepped out onto the porch, the same weathered man, Harlan, who had checked our permit on arrival. His eyes widened at our bedraggled, injured appearance. "What in God's name happened to you folks?" he asked, hurrying down the steps toward us. We started speaking all at once, our stories tumbling out incoherently until he raised his hands, asking us to calm down and come inside. In the station's small office, we took turns explaining what we'd experienced, the creatures, the tower, the arranged bodies. With each detail, Harlan's expression grew more troubled. When we finished, he sat in silence for a long moment, then slowly rolled up his sleeve, revealing an arm mottled with patches of bark-like growth, still small, but unmistakably similar to what we'd seen on the creatures. "It's happening to all of us who stay too long," he said quietly. "Something in these woods changes you. Most rangers transfer out within a year. Those who stay..." He trailed off, pulling his sleeve back down. "The transformation can be slowed," he continued, "but not stopped. Eventually, the forest calls you deeper in. Those who resist too long go mad, become violent. The ones who accept it become part of the forest's ecosystem." He spoke with the resigned calm of someone who had accepted his fate long ago. "We try to keep people away from the affected areas. The permit you had, it should never have allowed you near that tower. Someone made a mistake." The realization hit me then. We had never been meant to be in that part of the forest at all. Marcus's face had gone pale. "My uncle," he whispered. "He knew. He sent us there deliberately." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "Thomas Reynolds? He was stationed here before me. Disappeared into the back country 6 years ago. We assumed he'd joined the others. He's still in Seattle," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "At least, someone is living his life there. Someone who told us exactly where to camp, right near that tower." The implications were too disturbing to fully process. Had Thomas somehow escaped his transformation by sending others in his place? Was there some sort of exchange happening? New victims to satisfy the forest's hunger? Harlan called for emergency medical services for Dean and insisted on escorting us personally to the main highway. As we prepared to leave, he pulled me aside, his grip on my arm uncomfortably tight. "Watch your friends," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The forest, it gets inside you. Changes your thoughts before it changes your body. Some bring others back as offerings, trying to slow their own transformation." His eyes flicked meaningfully toward Marcus. Just because you left doesn't mean a part of it didn't leave with you. The drive back to Seattle passed in tense silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts, jumping at shadows and flinching at the sound of rustling leaves. When we finally reached the city, Marcus dropped us each off at our homes with brief, awkward goodbyes. I watched him drive away, thinking about Harlan's warning and wondering if I would ever see my friend again, or if what returned with us was truly him at all. That night, I awoke to a strange sound outside my apartment window, a familiar rattling vocalization that didn't belong in an urban environment. Looking out, I saw nothing in the street below, but noticed something strange on my windowsill. A small, fresh growth of moss with tiny saplings sprouting from it, arranged in a perfect circle. As I stared in growing horror, I scratched absently at my arm, where an itchy patch of skin had been bothering me since our return, a patch that now felt rough to the touch, like bark. I'm Nathan Paul Grayson, 34 years old, and I live in Missoula, Montana. Yeah, I'm already in the state, but sometimes you gotta get out of town, shake off the routine, you know? Work's been a meat grinder, construction gigs that leave me beat, and I figured a car camping trip was the fix. So, I loaded up my old Tacoma and pointed it toward the Bitterroot National Forest, a couple hours south. I roped in my sister Ellie. She's 31, a nurse with a wicked sense of humor, lives in Hamilton, and her friend Jace, 29, a quiet guy who's always sketching in a notebook. We've been itching for this, swapping texts about it for weeks. The drive's smooth, highway humming under my tires, mountains rolling by like they're showing off. I picked a spot near Lost Horse Creek, deep in the Bitterroot, wild, lonely, perfect for crashing in the truck bed. There's a lookout tower out there, Trapper Peak, perched high like it's keeping secrets. I'd heard about it from a buddy, thought it'd be a cool hike. Ellie's pumped, cracking jokes about bear attacks, while Jace just nods, sketching the scenery as we go. Me? I'm just happy to ditch the noise and breathe some real air. We pull into the campsite around dusk, sky bruising purple, air crisp enough to bite. It's a gravel pull-off by the creek, trees thick and dark, water gurgling soft. I park the Tacoma facing the forest, drop the tailgate, and we start unloading. Ellie's hauling the cooler, loaded with burgers and brews, while Jace rigs a tarp for shade. I can just see the tower up on the ridge, a faint outline against the fading light, and it's got this pull, like it's daring me to climb it. We're laughing, tossing a football around, fire sparking to life. The setup's easy. I've got a sleeping pad in the truck bed, blankets piled high, a flashlight hooked to the canopy. Ellie and Jace claim the tarp, rolling out sleeping bags, saying it's cozier than it looks. I'm leaning on the tailgate, sipping a beer, watching the creek catch the last of the sun. Montana's got this rugged beauty that hits you square, but there's a stillness too, something heavy. Ellie starts yapping about park rangers, how they cruise these woods, keeping an eye out. I shrug, seen him before, no big deal. First night's a blast, fire roaring, burgers sizzling, Ellie roasting Jace for burning his bun. I'm feeling loose, the stars popping out like they're putting on a show. The tower's up there, a shadow now, and I mention hitting it tomorrow. Ellie's all in. Jace mumbles he'll go if we don't die first. Dry humor, that guy. I'm grinning, thinking this is it. Good company, good vibes, a break from the grind. The creek's a steady hum, lulling me as I climb into the truck to crash. I'm half asleep, tailgate open, when I jolt awake. Something's off. I sit up, blinking into the dark, flashlight in hand. The fire's down to coals. Ellie and Jace are out cold under the tarp, and the woods are silent. No critters, no wind. My beam sweeps the trees, catches nothing, but I'm edgy. Then I see it. Up on Trapper Peak, a flicker, quick, like someone flipped a switch and back. Ranger maybe? I'm rubbing my eyes, telling myself it's fine, but my pulse is up. I lie back, tug the blanket tight, but that flicker's gnawing at me. Ellie mutters something in her sleep, Jace shifts, and I'm trying to chill. Probably just my head messing with me. Long day, too much beer. I close my eyes, focus on the creek, but it's no good. That tower's stuck in my brain now, and I'm wondering what's up there, watching us. Morning slams in, sun blasting through the trees, and I'm stiff, crawling out of the truck bed. Ellie's already up, brewing coffee on the camp stove, while Jace stretches, sketchbook in hand. We're joking about who snored loudest. Ellie blames me, and I'm shaking off the weirdness from last night. The tower's sharp against the ridge, calling me, and I can't let it go. Coffee's bitter, but it wakes me up, and I'm ready to move. We scarf some oatmeal, pack light, water, snacks, my old camera, and decide to hike up. Ellie's bouncing. Jace is quiet but slings a backpack, and I lock the Tacoma, double-checking the keys. The trail's ahead, steep and rocky, and I'm chatting away, keeping it light. But deep down, that flicker's still there, tugging at me, and I'm starting to think maybe I should have picked a different spot. The trail to Trapper Peak is a beast right off the bat. Steep as hell, gravel sliding under my boots like it's trying to send me back down. I'm huffing, camera thumping against my chest, while Ellie bounds ahead, calling me a slacker. Jace is trailing, picking his way slow, sketchbook tucked under his arm. I holler at Ellie to ease up, and she spins, grinning, saying I'm too old for this at 34. Smartass. The air's thick with pine and sweat, and the tower's poking through the trees now, closer but still messing with my sense of distance. We're maybe halfway up when my bootlace snaps. Cheap thing just gives out, and I'm cursing, kneeling to knot it. Ellie stops to wait, tossing me a water bottle, and Jace catches up, sketching a twisted route while I fumble. I'm grumbling about the climb, and Ellie's giving me that look, like she's already regretting letting me plan this. That flicker from last night's nagging me, and I'm starting to wonder if this hike's a dumb idea. We push on anyway, too stubborn to quit, I guess. The tower looms into view at a rocky clearing, tall, weathered, a little crooked like it's tired of standing. It's got this eerie vibe, paint peeling, windows dark and smudged. I snap a few pics, trying to play it cool, but Ellie's already eyeing the stairs, itching to climb. Jace isn't sold. He's leaning on a boulder, saying it looks sketchy as hell. He's not wrong. Those steps are rusted, gaps big enough to slip through. I suggest we just check the base instead, keep it chill, but Ellie's pout says she's not thrilled. Down at the tower's feet, there's junk scattered, old bottles, a frayed rope, signs of life long gone. Ellie kicks at a can, joking about ghosts, while I spot a faded plaque, Trapper Peak Lookout, EST 1949. My hand brushes it, and a chill hits. Not the wind, something else. Jace is wandering, sketching the view, when he stops cold. He says he saw something move. Quick, low, down by the creek. I squint, see nothing but trees, but now I'm jumpy, thinking bear or worse. We're poking around when I notice gouges on the tower's legs. Deep, fresh, like something scraped hard. I point it out, and Ellie shrugs, says maybe rangers were working on it. But it's off. Man, disturbing, too messy, too new. Jace is quiet, sketching faster, and I can feel the mood shift. Forest too still, like it's holding its breath. I float heading back, figure we can kick it by the truck instead, and Ellie groans but nods. Jace is already turning, like he's been waiting for the out. The hike down's a slog, my knees are yelling, and I'm mad I didn't pack more water. Ellie's quieter now, lost in her head, while Jace sticks close, pencil still moving. I keep glancing at the tower. It's like it's tracking us, daring us to stay gone. We're almost back when my camera strap snags a branch, yanks the lens cap off. Gone in the dirt. I curse, dig for it, and find it under a rock. The truck's in sight, parked by the creek, but something's nagging me, tugging at my gut. Back at camp, I flop against the tailgate, beat. Ellie's rummaging for snacks, and Jace is sprawled under the tarp, sketching like a machine. I'm trying to shake this weird vibe when I see the cooler, tipped over, lid cracked, food scattered. Ellie says wind. Maybe, but there's no breeze, and my skin's prickling. It's creepy, how trashed it looks, and I'm starting to wonder what's creeping around out here. We're cleaning up, tossing dented cans, when Jace squints down the road. He says he saw a truck earlier, gray, rusted, rolling slow past the turnoff while we were gone. I didn't catch it, but now I'm scanning, half expecting it to cruise by. Nothing moves, but Ellie's fidgeting, saying she heard a ranger once mention odd stuff in the Bitterroot. Missing gear, weird tracks. I laugh it off, tell her she's been watching too many thrillers, but my eyes keep drifting to the trees. The sun's sinking, shadows clawing long, and I'm feeling exposed, like we're on someone's radar. I'm fiddling with my busted lace, tying it tighter, when Ellie gasps. She's pointing up at Trapper Peak. That flickers back, slow and steady, right from the tower. My stomach drops, and Jace's pencil stops. It's no trick, no ranger. It's real, and it's locked on us. I'm telling myself it's nothing, but deep down, I know something's stirring, and it's not friendly. Night crashes down hard, the kind of black that makes you feel like you're drowning in it. I'm sprawled in the truck bed, tailgate open, flashlights swinging lazy above me. Ellie and Jace are under the tarp, zonked out after splitting the last of the beers. They're breathing steady in the quiet. I'm restless, though, that flicker from the towers looping in my head, keeping me wired. I'm staring at the creek, water glinting faint under the moon, when I hear it. A snap, loud, like a branch breaking clean. I bolt up, heart thumping, and sweep my light around. Nothing but shadows. I'm about to ride it off when the tarp shifts. Ellie stumbles out, rubbing her eyes, asking if I heard that. I nod, keeping my voice low, and we're straining to listen. There's another snap, closer, then a scrape, like something dragging slow. My gut's twisting, and I'm shaking Jace awake. He's groggy but snaps to when he sees us freaked. I swing the flashlight toward the trees, and it catches something. Tire tracks, fresh, cutting through the dirt by the creek. Not ours. My throat's dry, and I'm whispering they weren't there before. Ellie's saying we should check it out, but I'm already grabbing my boots, telling her to stay put. She's not listening, grabs her phone, light on, and Jace follows, sketchbook left behind. We creep toward the tracks, my beam shaking, and up close, it's worse. There's a smear in the mud, dark, sticky. Blood? I'm choking it down, telling them we're done here, but Jace points upstream. That flicker's back, steady now, bright, drilling down from Trapper Peak right at us. It's scary as hell, and I'm not pretending anymore. We're backing toward the truck when headlights flare, dim, yellow, slicing through the woods down the road. A truck rumbles in, gray, rusted, pedented like it's been through a war. It stops, engine growling low, and two guys step out. Big, shadowed, moving like they own the place. One's got a flashlight, beam jerking wild, and the other's holding something, shovel, maybe, glinting dull. They're not rangers, no badges, no uniforms, and my brain's screaming trouble. Ellie's hissing we should hide, but I'm frozen, watching. The beam hits the Tacoma, and I yank Ellie and Jace behind it, crouching low. My pulse is hammering, loud in my ears, and I can hear boots crunching closer. They're muttering, low, rough, words I can't catch, and I smell something rank, like rot and motor oil. One stops by the fire pit, kicks at the coals, and the other circles the truck slow. Jace is trembling, Ellie's gripping my sleeve, and I'm whispering we've got to move. Can't stay pinned here. That light from the tower's still on us, like a spotlight for these creeps. We edge along the truck, keeping down, aiming for the trees by the creek. My flashlight's off, and I'm blind, stumbling over rocks, but we make it to the brush. The truck's engine coughs, headlights swinging, and I hear one of them grunt, short, pissed, like he knows we're slipping. My chest's tight, and I'm thinking about those tracks, that smear, wondering what they've already done. We're pushing toward the trail, dumb plan, but maybe we can lose him up by the tower. The climb's brutal, legs burning, and Ellie's panting hard, saying she saw something by the creek, long, still, like a bag or worse. I don't look, just keep moving. The tower's ahead, dark and jagged, and we hit the stairs, metal creaking loud under us. Inside, it's a mess, dust, broken glass, a stale stink that chokes me. My beam catches a wall, gouges, deep, fresh, and a boot print in the dirt, big. Jace mutters about the light, how it's gone now, but I'm not listening. There's a coil of rope in the corner, frayed, stained red. We're huddled by the window, catching our breath, when the truck's engine roars, close, too close. Headlights flood the trail below, pinning the tower, and I shove Ellie and Jace down, out of sight. Boots hit gravel, 2 sets, heavy, and I hear a voice, low and gravelly, saying check up top. My blood's cold, and I'm gripping a loose board, ready to swing if they climb. Ellie's whispering about the shape by the creek, how it wasn't moving, and I'm shushing her, but my head's spinning. Was it someone else, already gone? The stairs groan. One's coming up, slow, deliberate. My flashlight's jittering, beam darting, and I catch a shadow through the cracks. Big, steady. Jace is pale, Ellie's biting her knuckles, and I'm thinking this is it. Something's wrong, horror movie wrong, and we're cornered. The steps pause, right below, and I hear a chuckle. Deep, nasty, like he's enjoying this. I'm holding my breath, praying they back off, but that light flicks on again, bright, blinding, straight through the window, and I know we're screwed. The tower's trembling as those boots thud up the stairs, each step a punch to my gut. I'm gripping the board, splinters biting my hand, while Ellie and Jace crouch behind me, eyes huge. The door flies open, and I swing, hard, cracking the first guy across the jaw. He reels, spitting blood, but the second one's through, shovel swinging wild. Ellie shrieks, Jace lunges, and they tangle, crashing into the wall. I'm on the first guy again, slamming the board into his knee. He drops, howling, and we've got a split second to bolt. Ellie's ahead, tearing down the stairs, and I'm shoving Jace after her, my board clattering behind. The tower's groaning, metal shrieking, and I hear the shovel guy yell. They're running. My legs are jelly, but I'm flying, hitting the ground hard. Headlights glare below, the truck's parked, engine snarling, and the first guy's limping out, clutching his face. I'm thinking Tacoma, keys, go, and we're sprinting through the dark, trees clawing at us like they're in on it. We burst into the campsite, tarp shredded, fire pit smashed, and I'm digging for the keys, hands shaking like crazy. Ellie's at the passenger door, Jace dives into the truck bed, and I'm in, jamming the key in. The engine coughs, "Don't you dare," and roars to life. Headlights flick on just as shovel guy stumbles from the trail, swinging at the tailgate. I peel out, gravel spraying, and he misses by inches, cursing loud. The truck's headlights flare in my rear view. They're chasing, fast. I'm flooring it, the Tacoma bouncing wild, tires slipping on the dirt road. Ellie's yelling about the creek, that shape. Did they get someone? And I'm shouting I don't know, just hold on. The gray truck's gaining, bumper kissing mine, and I swerve, scraping a tree. My heart's hammering, life and death, no kidding, and I'm weaving, dodging ruts, praying we don't flip. Jace is banging on the back window, saying they're right there, and I hear a thunk. Shovel hits the tailgate, sticks. The road twists, narrow as hell, and I'm pushing the truck past its limit, engine screaming. A sign flashes, Highway 93, for miles, and I'm clinging to that like a lifeline. They ram us, hard, and the Tacoma fishtails. I fight the wheel, tires screeching, and Ellie's gripping the dash, white-knuckled. I'm muttering, come on, like it'll help, and the highway's close. Real lights ahead, not theirs. They ram again, metal crunching, and I feel the tailgate give, but I'm not stopping. We hit pavement, tires squealing, and I gun it north toward Hamilton. Gas stations, people, anything. The gray truck slows, veers off down a side road, and I'm watching it vanish, chest heaving. My hands are slick, shaking, and I pull over a mile out, engine ticking hot. The tailgate's mangled, shovel still lodged in it, and Jace climbs out, pale as hell. Ellie's sobbing, asking about that shape, and I'm fumbling my phone. One bar, thank God, dialing 911 with numb fingers. I'm stammering to the operator, tower, truck, blood, everything. Voice cracking, and she's saying help's coming, stay put. The Tacoma's a wreck, dents, scratches, that shovel like a trophy, and I'm scanning the dark, expecting them to roll back. Jace is muttering about the rope, the boot print, and I'm telling him to shut it. I can't think. We're alive, sorta, but it's hollow. Whatever's out there isn't done, and I feel it in my bones. Cops show up fast, lights blazing, and I'm leaning on the truck, trying to breathe. Ellie's pacing, Jace is slumped, and I'm spilling it all to a deputy, big guy, all business. He's nodding, scribbling, says they'll check the tower, the creek. I'm begging him to hurry, thinking about that smear, that shape, and he just grunts, tells us to wait. My phone's dying, and I'm kicking myself for not charging it. Stupid, Nathan, real stupid. They're towing the Tacoma. Evidence, they say, and we're stuck roadside, watching the night swallow the forest. Ellie's quiet, Jace is sketching again, nervous ticks, and I'm replaying every move. Should have stayed put, should have locked up, should have never gone up there. The deputy's radio crackles. Units at the tower, found something, and I'm straining to hear, but he walks off. I'm left with this sick feeling, knowing we dodged death, but someone else might not have. We're hauled to a station in Hamilton, sipping burnt coffee, wrapped in scratchy blankets. I'm telling the story again, tracks, truck, tower, to a detective, a wiry woman with a clipboard. She's asking about the shape by the creek, and I stumble, saying we didn't stop, couldn't. Ellie's pacing, muttering about the blood, how it's someone's, and Jace is silent, sketching the shovel over and over. My head's pounding, guilt's a brick on my chest, and I'm hating myself for dragging us out here. They keep us till morning, sun creeping up cold and gray, and a ranger rolls in. Real one, badge gleaming. He's got bad news. Campsite's trashed, blood on the tarp, tracks all over, but no bodies. The tower's got those gouges, that rope, and a smear. Human, fresh. He's pressing us. Anyone else out there? And I shake my head, but Ellie whispers about the shape, how it was too still. The ranger's jaw tightens, says they've had reports. Missing hikers. Odd stuff near Trapper Peak. No solid leads, just talk. And I'm yelling it's not talk. It's real, slamming my fist down. Jace is cracking, eyes red, saying we should have checked the creek, helped whoever it was. I snap back. We'd be dead too. But he's right, and it's tearing me up. My mistake was picking this spot, chasing that tower, ignoring the signs. The ranger's radio buzzes. Team found a jacket by the creek, torn, not ours. My stomach lurches, someone else, caught first, and we ran right past. The detective says they'll keep searching, but her voice is flat, like it's already a lost cause. They cut us loose around noon. No truck, no answers. Ellie calls a friend to grab us, and we're outside, wind cutting through, silent. I'm thinking about Jace's sketches, Ellie's tears, that jacket. Someone will never know. It's a tragedy. We got out, but they didn't, and it's on me. The cops promise updates, but I'm not holding out. I'm haunted, staring at the Bitterroot, knowing it's hiding something rotten. Back in Missoula, I'm a mess, can't sleep, jumping at every creek. Ellie's avoiding me. Jace has gone quiet, and I'm alone with this weight. The news hits a week later. Another camper missing near Lost Horse, same vibe. I'm not surprised, just sick. I call the station, leave a message about the shovel, the tracks, but no call back. They've checked out, but I can't let it go. I'm online now, digging, old stories, forums, whispers about the Bitterroot. There's a thread, disappearances, rogue rangers, something dark, and I'm hooked, piecing it together. That tower's in my head, that flicker taunting me, and I'm planning to go back. Dumb, yeah, but I need to know, for that jacket for us. I'm packing, crowbar, flashlight, a gun this time. When my lights dim, flicker. It's dead quiet, then a hum kicks in. Low, steady outside. My heart's racing, and I'm at the window, peering out. Nothing moves, but the street's too dark, and I'm gripping the crowbar, thinking about that rope, that smear. I'm telling myself it's nothing, but my gut's screaming. Whatever's out there followed me home. Days later, I'm back in the Bitterroot, alone, truck parked by the creek. Trapper Peak looms, silent, and I'm hiking up, armed, wired. I'm near the tower when I see it. A gray truck, tucked in the trees, still. My breath catches, and I'm turning back, fast, but the hum starts, close, loud, and I know I've messed up again. I'm running, crowbar slipping in my hand, when something steps out, big, shadowed, shovel raised. I swing, miss, and it's on me. Wait, stink, a low laugh. The last thing I hear is the creak, gurgling soft, as the tower flickers one last time, like it's watching me go. My name is Daniel Robert Calloway, and I have 29 years old. I live in Missoula, a place where most people know their neighbors and the mountains are always watching. I work as a software developer for a small tech company downtown, but every summer I try to escape the concrete and screens for at least a week. This year was no different, except maybe for that unsettling feeling I had since I first planned the trip to Glacier National Park. I convinced my college buddies, Marcus and Elijah, to join me on what was supposed to be a relaxing getaway. Marcus Stinson was always the adventurous one, a wildlife photographer with an uncanny talent for finding himself in precarious situations. Elijah Wright, on the other hand, was cautious to a fault, a high school science teacher with an encyclopedic knowledge of survival tactics, but little practical experience. We packed my Subaru Outback with more supplies than we'd need for a weekend trip, or so we thought. The plan was simple: drive to Glacier National Park, find a secluded spot away from the typical tourist areas, and spend 3 days living out of my car, hiking during the day, and stargazing at night. Marcus was particularly excited about photographing the abandoned fire lookout tower he'd read about in some obscure hiking blog. The drive from Missoula to Glacier was breathtaking, with the Montana landscape stretching endlessly before us. The looming mountains grew larger with each passing mile, their snow-capped peaks disappearing into low-hanging clouds. I couldn't shake the disturbing sense that they were slowly closing in around us, like ancient giants awakening from slumber. We arrived at the eastern entrance of Glacier National Park around sunset. The ranger station was staffed by a single park ranger, a tall, gaunt man named Ranger Peterson. His weathered face suggested decades of service, but his eyes held something I couldn't quite place. A haunted look that sent a chill down my spine despite the warm evening air. "You boys planning on camping?" he asked, examining our permits with unusual scrutiny. When Marcus mentioned the old lookout tower, Ranger Peterson's hand froze momentarily. "That area is not on any official maps anymore," he said flatly. "Been closed to the public since '97. Despite his warnings about recent bear activity and the forecast for unexpected weather, we assured him we were experienced enough to handle whatever came our way. How naive we were. If only we'd paid attention to his parting words as we drove away. The mountains have their own rules out here. Not everything that watches from those peaks is wildlife." We followed a narrow, winding road deeper into the park, leaving the main routes behind. The forest grew denser, the trees pressing closer to the road as dusk settled into complete darkness. By the time we found a suitable clearing to park my Outback, the only light came from our headlamps and the impossibly bright stars overhead. We set up our makeshift camp, transforming the back of my car into sleeping quarters with the seats folded down and thermal blankets covering the windows. As we sat around a small camp stove eating freeze-dried meals, Marcus shared stories about the lookout tower's history, how it was abandoned after a series of mysterious disappearances in the '90s. Elijah nervously suggested we stick to marked trails, but Marcus was resolute. The old tower was only a few miles hike from our location, according to his research. Little did we know that finding that tower would be the beginning of the most horrifying experience of our lives. The next morning, we woke to a landscape transformed by a thick, unnatural fog. It wasn't the normal morning mist that rises from Montana valleys. This was different, almost opaque, with tendrils that seemed to reach through the trees like searching fingers. My watch read 7:15 a.m., but the forest around us remained in an eerie twilight state. "This doesn't look right," Elijah muttered, clutching his coffee mug with white knuckles. Weather report didn't mention fog. He pulled out his phone. No signal, as expected this deep in the park. The GPS app showed our location, but the detailed maps he'd downloaded appeared corrupted, displaying strange symbols where trail markers should be. We debated whether to proceed with our hike to the lookout tower or return to more populated areas of the park. Marcus was adamant about finding the tower, almost obsessively so. "We came all this way," he insisted, showing us a faded photograph he'd printed. "Look at the architecture. It's unlike any other lookout in the Rockies. Has these weird carvings along the support beams." Against my better judgment, I sided with Marcus. Elijah reluctantly agreed to join us, but insisted we leave a detailed note in the car about our planned route, just in case. As he wrote, I noticed his hand trembling slightly. Looking back, I should have recognized that primal fear for what it was, a warning. About an hour into our hike, the fog began to lift, revealing a landscape that didn't quite match the maps. Trails diverged where they shouldn't, and twice we found ourselves walking in circles despite following what appeared to be a straight path. Even more disturbing were the trees. Many bore strange, symmetrical gouges about 7 feet up their trunks, too uniform to be bare markings. "Guys, check this out," I called, stopping to examine something half buried in the soft earth. It was a park ranger's badge, tarnished and bent, with the name Peterson still legible. The same ranger we'd met yesterday. But this badge looked like it had been out in the elements for years, not hours. Marcus snapped photos of the badge before I pocketed it, planning to return it when we got back. Shortly after that discovery, we started hearing the whistling. Faint at first, like wind through distant trees, but distinctly melodic. A simple 3-note pattern that repeated at irregular intervals, sometimes seeming to come from multiple directions at once. "That's human," Elijah whispered, his scientific certainty crumbling. "Someone's out there," we called out, our voices swallowed by the vastness of the forest. No response except that same whistling, now slightly closer. And then silence. Complete and absolute silence. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of wind in the trees. That's when we spotted it, the lookout tower rising above the tree line about half a mile ahead. It matched Marcus's photograph in structure, but appeared much older, the wood darkened with age and the windows boarded up. Most unsettling was the fact that we could now see it clearly, when just moments before, that entire section of forest had been obscured by fog. "We should head back," I suggested, unable to shake the scary feeling that we were being herded toward the tower by forces we couldn't see. But as we turned, we realized with growing horror that the trail behind us had changed again. Where we'd walked through sparse underbrush, there now stood a nearly impenetrable wall of tangled vegetation. And through the dense foliage, barely visible, were what looked like eyes, dozens of them, watching our every move. "What the hell is that?" Marcus hissed, raising his camera to zoom in on the watching eyes, only to find his battery suddenly drained. The eyes blinked in unison, a synchronicity that sent waves of nausea through my body. They weren't animal eyes. They were too knowing, too patient. Elijah began hyperventilating, his scientific mind unable to process what we were witnessing. "This isn't happening," he repeated, even as the evidence mounted before us. I grabbed both their arms and began pulling them toward the tower. Whatever was in the woods behind us was certainly hostile. The tower, at least, offered some kind of shelter. The half-mile trek became an exercise in terror. The ground beneath our feet grew increasingly spongy, as if we were walking on something organic rather than soil. With each step, I swore I felt the earth subtly shift in response. Marcus pointed out tracks in the mud, large, humanoid footprints that appeared freshly made, then vanished a few steps later, as if whatever made them had simply disappeared. "Look at the trees," Elijah whispered, his voice cracking. The forest around us was changing, the trees gradually becoming more uniform in their disturbing appearance. Their bark had darkened to an almost black hue, and many now bore those same strange gouges we'd seen earlier. But here, the markings formed distinct patterns, not random at all, but deliberate symbols carved into living wood. As we approached the base of the lookout tower, we discovered a small cabin built into its foundation, something not visible in any of Marcus's research photos. The door hung half open, revealing dust-covered furniture and equipment that appeared to be from the 1950s, not the 1990s when the tower was supposedly abandoned. A logbook lay open on a desk, the last entry dated October 13th, 1958. "Spotted them again today," the entry read in shaky handwriting. "Moving through the trees. They're getting bolder. Radio still down. Peterson says headquarters hasn't heard from us in 3 weeks, but that's impossible. I spoke to dispatch yesterday. At least, I think it was yesterday." The sound of something heavy dragging across the ground outside sent us scrambling into the cabin, slamming the door behind us. Through the grimy window, we watched in horror as the forest floor rippled like water. The trees nearest to the cabin began to lean inward, their branches stretching toward the structure like grasping hands. A thunderous banging erupted from the ceiling. Something was on the tower above us. The stairs leading up to the lookout platform creaked under heavy footsteps. Something was coming down, step by deliberate step. The door at the top of the stairwell slowly began to open. Elijah, finally braking, made a dash for the cabin door, determined to take his chances with the forest rather than face whatever was descending the stairs. Marcus and I tried to stop him, but he was beyond reason. He yanked open the door and froze in place. Standing before him was Ranger Peterson, or something wearing Peterson's uniform. Its proportions were wrong, limbs too long, head slightly misshapen beneath the ranger hat. "You boys shouldn't be here," it said in Peterson's voice, but with an unnatural cadence that suggested the words were being formed by something unfamiliar with human speech. "This area's been closed since '97. The exact same phrase he'd used at the entrance, delivered with identical intonation, like a recording, or something that had learned to mimic but didn't truly understand. What happened next occurred with such frightening speed that even now, months later, The memories feel like fragments of a nightmare rather than actual events. The thing wearing Peterson's uniform reached for Elijah with hands that suddenly elongated, fingers stretching impossibly long. Elijah screamed, a sound I'll hear in my darkest dreams for the rest of my life. Marcus reacted first, grabbing a rusty fire axe from the wall and swinging it wildly at the creature. The axe connected with a sickening sound, not the thud of metal striking flesh, but a hollow, wooden crack. The thing wearing Peterson's uniform staggered back, dark sap-like fluid oozing from the wound instead of blood. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing the logbook on instinct and shoving it into my backpack. We bolted past the stunned creature, Elijah in shock, but still mobile as Marcus and I half-dragged him toward the woods. But not back the way we'd come. That path was now crowded with more figures in ranger uniforms, all with the same wrong proportions, all moving with that same unsettling gait. "The tower!" Marcus yelled, pointing upward. "We can see which way to go from up there." It was a desperate plan, but our only option. We doubled back and raced up the external metal staircase that spiraled around the lookout tower. The steps vibrated beneath our feet as the creatures began to follow, their movements becoming less human with each passing second. From the top platform, nearly 50 feet above the ground, the true scope of our situation became horrifyingly clear. The forest for miles around had transformed. The trees had rearranged themselves into concentric circles with the tower at the center. And at the very edge of our vision, a wall of fog was slowly contracting, shrinking our world even further. "There!" Elijah shouted, pointing northeast. Through a gap in the corrupted forest, we could see normal trees and what appeared to be a genuine trail about a mile away. If we could reach that, we might find our way back to civilization. The alternative, staying in the tower until nightfall, was unthinkable. The creatures were now halfway up the staircase, their forms becoming less and less human with each step. Their bodies seemed to be merging with the metal, limbs wrapping around railings like vines. Marcus found an emergency locker containing flares and a small propane tank used for the tower's heater. "I'm going to buy us some time," he said grimly, rigging the tank with a flare. "When I say go, you two start down the north side maintenance ladder. Don't wait for me." Before we could argue, he had positioned the makeshift bomb near the top of the spiral staircase where the creatures were ascending. The explosion ripped through the morning air, sending metal shrapnel and dark organic matter in all directions. The tower swayed dangerously, threatening to collapse. We scrambled down the maintenance ladder on the opposite side, the metal rung slick with morning dew and something else, that same sap-like substance that had oozed from the Peterson creature. We hit the ground running, heading northeast toward what we prayed was normal forest. Behind us, the tower groaned and began to tilt as more creatures emerged from the woods, converging on the damaged structure. I glanced back just once and immediately wished I hadn't. Marcus was still on the tower's platform, surrounded by 3 of the ranger things. He caught my eye and nodded once before disappearing from view as the tower finally gave way, collapsing into the corrupt forest. The mile-long sprint through the changing woods became a blur of terror. The ground continued to shift beneath our feet, sometimes seeming to deliberately trip us. Trees bent toward us as we passed, branches snagging our clothing. All around, the 3-note whistle sounded, closer and more insistent. Behind us, the collapsed tower had vanished beneath a writhing mass of vegetation and uniform-clad figures that were spreading out in search of us. Elijah and I reached the boundary between the corrupted forest and normal woods, but our relief was short-lived. A ravine we hadn't seen from the tower separated us from safety, a 20-foot drop with a fast-moving creek at the bottom. The whistling behind us grew louder, and the fog was contracting more rapidly now, as if the forest had realized its prey was about to escape. "We have to jump," I said, peering over the edge. Elijah, still in shock from everything we'd witnessed, simply nodded. Together, we backed up to get a running start. That's when Elijah froze, staring over my shoulder with pure horror etched on his face. I turned to see Marcus emerging from the trees. But it wasn't Marcus, not anymore. His body moved with that same wrong gait, his camera still hanging around his neck, but now partially embedded in his chest, as if his flesh had grown around it. "Guys, I found a better way down," he called in Marcus's voice. but with that same mechanical cadence we'd heard from the Peterson creature. Elijah broke, making a desperate dash toward the ravine edge. The thing that was once Marcus moved with impossible speed, overtaking him just as he leapt. Their bodies connected mid-air, tumbling together into the chasm below. I heard a splash, then silence. With the creatures closing in from all sides, I had no choice but to jump as well, aiming for a different spot downriver. The impact with the water knocked the wind from my lungs, the current immediately sweeping me downstream. As I struggled to keep my head above water, I caught one last glimpse of the forest behind me. The trees had reached the ravine edge and were actually extending over it, stretching toward me like grasping fingers before the current carried me around a bend. I don't remember much of what followed. Somehow, I washed up on a sandbar nearly 2 miles downstream, half drowned but alive. A genuine park ranger found me there hours later. A search had been initiated when we failed to check in at any stations the previous day. According to him, I'd been missing for 5 days, not the single night I'd experienced. They never found Elijah or Marcus. The authorities conducted a thorough search, but there was no sign of the corrupted forest I described. No lookout tower, no cabin. The area where we'd supposedly hiked was dense wilderness with no trails. My car was discovered 20 miles from where I thought we'd parked it, the windows shattered as if something had broken out from within rather than broken in. The only proof I have that any of it happened is the logbook I somehow managed to keep in my backpack through it all, and Ranger Peterson's tarnished badge. But even these raise more questions than answers. The logbook's pages are now blank, though I swear they contained entries when I found it. And when I tried to return the badge to park headquarters, they looked at me with confusion. According to their records, no ranger named Peterson had worked at Glacier National Park since 1958, the same year as the last dated entry I'd seen in the logbook. I've been back in Missoula for 3 months now. I can't sleep more than a few hours without nightmares. Sometimes I wake to the sound of that 3-note whistle coming from the woods behind my apartment complex. Twice I've found strange gouges in the tree outside my bedroom window, about 7 feet up the trunk. Last week, I received a postcard in the mail. No return address, no message, just a faded photograph of a lookout tower I recognize all too well, and 3 sets of footprints in mud leading toward it. And I know, with absolute certainty, that someday soon I'll receive another postcard, and another, until eventually I'll feel compelled to return to those mountains to find out what really happened to my friends. Because the forest is patient. The forest has all the time in the world, and somehow I know it's still waiting for me. My name is Daniel Patrick. I have 32 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I'd always been drawn to the unknown, to the eerie whispers of the wilderness, so when the chance to take a car camping trip in Montana came up, I couldn't resist. I packed my old, reliable sedan with essentials and memories of past adventures, feeling a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Even now, recalling that first moment of driving into Montana's vast landscapes, I can't help but shudder at the unsettling sense that something was waiting in the shadows. Arriving in Montana was like stepping into another world, an endless expanse of rugged terrain, pine forests, and distant, lonely hills. The air smelled crisp and a bit wild, carrying hints of pine resin and a disturbing chill that clung to me. As I drove towards my chosen campsite, I couldn't ignore the silent sentinels of the wilderness. Towering trees that lined the narrow roads, and the occasional, mysterious lookout tower peeking through the fog. Was it just my imagination, or did that tower seem to watch my every move? The drive eventually led me to a secluded spot near a dilapidated trail, where the remains of an old lookout tower loomed ominously in the distance. I parked my car, which doubled as my makeshift tent, and stepped out into the dimming light of dusk. The silence around me was both peaceful and unnerving, the kind of silence that makes your heart pound in a scary rhythm. I remember thinking, is this just a simple camping trip or the start of something truly disturbing? That unsettling thought lingered as the day gave way to night. I wasn't alone in this journey. Joining me were 2 close friends, Sarah Ann, with her contagious laughter and keen sense for details, and Mark Thomas, a practical guy who always had my back no matter what. We had planned this trip for months. each of us seeking a break from our daily routines and a taste of adventure. But as we exchanged stories around the faint glow of our headlights, hints of past misadventures in remote campsites started blending with whispers of local legends, leaving us with a growing sense of foreboding. The evening deepened as we set up camp by the roadside, the eerie silhouettes of nearby trees stretching into the unknown. I remember the odd feeling of being watched, as if the broken window of the abandoned lookout tower wasn't the only pair of eyes observing us. The conversation turned from casual banter to uneasy speculations about what lurked beyond the flickering light of our car. It felt as though every rustle of the wind was a deliberate, scary reminder of that chilling presence, leaving us all on edge. As darkness claimed the landscape, I found myself wrestling with mixed emotions, excitement for the adventure ahead and a disturbing dread of what might come next. My thoughts swirled with memories of other eerie nights, where simple camping trips turned into life-altering encounters. In that moment, every creak of my car and every distant sound took on a more sinister meaning. I couldn't help but ask myself, is it really just a scary camping trip, or is there something far more malevolent waiting to reveal itself? Midway through the night, a soft beam of light from a far-off patrol car briefly crossed my vision, a reminder that park rangers still patrolled these remote areas. Their presence, usually a sign of safety, only added to the intrigue and mystery of the situation. I recalled hearing stories about rangers who encountered inexplicable phenomena, their accounts as disturbing as they were unbelievable. The irony wasn't lost on me, a symbol of order in a wild, uncontrollable landscape that felt increasingly like the setting for a horror story. I kept wondering, have you ever felt that prickling sensation in your spine when you're alone in the dark, knowing deep down that you're not really alone? With each passing minute, the silence and the shadows seemed to conspire against me, urging me to listen closely to every disturbing sound and movement. Every rustle, every whisper of the wind seemed to hold a secret, pulling me deeper into a narrative that was rapidly spiraling into a real-life horror story. I couldn't shake the feeling that our seemingly innocent adventure was already taking a sinister turn. As the night wore on, I sat in the quiet solitude of my car, reflecting on the events of the day and the palpable tension that now filled the air. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread as I contemplated the eerie structure in the distance, the lookout tower that had caught my eye earlier. The unresolved questions of that day, coupled with the unsettling silence of the Montana night, left me wondering what fate had in store for us. And just as I began to feel the weight of an impending doom, something unexpected stirred beyond the darkness. The next morning, a disquieting unease clung to us like a stubborn fog. I woke up to a cascade of disturbing sounds echoing from the dark corners of the campsite. The chill from the night hadn't left, and even the usual comforting rays of the Montana sun couldn't shake off the horror that lingered. I glanced at Sarah and Mark Thomas, and I could see the anxiety in their eyes, a silent acknowledgement that something wasn't right. Have you ever woken up with that nagging feeling that you'd made a grave mistake? I felt it deep in my bones. While sipping my lukewarm coffee in the dim light of early morning, I couldn't ignore the series of small but scary details unfolding around us. A misplaced piece of equipment, a half-open car door, and inexplicable tracks in the soft earth all pointed to an unseen presence. It wasn't long before Mark Thomas admitted that he had heard odd, disturbing whispers during the night. Those words made me pause and question whether we had truly prepared for the dangers lurking beyond our sight. What would you do if you sensed something was amiss even in the daylight? We gathered near the car, the site of our makeshift shelter, and decided to discuss our next steps. The plan was simple: investigate the origin of those strange sounds and unusual marks. Sarah, and ever the brave one, suggested checking the area near the old lookout tower. I felt an unsettling thrill as I considered the possibilities, a horror movie scenario unfolding right before our eyes. The decision was made quickly, yet each of us felt the weight of a potentially life-altering choice pressing down on us. Isn't it crazy how a simple decision can spiral into a scary nightmare? With our makeshift gear in tow, we set off toward the direction of the eerie tower. The path was rugged, and every step felt like we were venturing deeper into the unknown. The forest around us buzzed with life, Yet there was an underlying silence that made every rustle and snap of a twig sound disturbingly ominous. My heart pounded as we followed the faint tracks left behind in the dew-soaked ground. It was as if the wilderness was warning us. Have you ever felt the urge to turn back, even when curiosity pushes you onward? As we advanced, the situation grew increasingly complex. I noticed odd markings on trees and subtle disturbances in the underbrush that suggested we weren't alone. At one point, a sharp, disturbing sound came from behind, and I instinctively whipped around, only to see nothing but shadows. The rational part of my mind wrestled with the frightening possibility of someone, or something, watching us. I shared a nervous chuckle with Sarah and, trying to mask my rising fear, but the horror was undeniable. Could these signs really be the precursor to something deadly? We eventually reached a clearing where the remnants of an old park ranger station stood half-hidden among the trees. Its weathered sign and broken windows added to the eerie setting, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this place held secrets from the past. Mark Thomas took the lead, cautiously pushing the door open to reveal a room littered with old maps and faded notes. Among them, a scribbled warning about unexplained events near the lookout tower sent shivers down my spine. Isn't it unsettling when relics of the past whisper disturbing warnings about the future? In the midst of our exploration, a sudden downpour forced us to take shelter under a tattered canopy. The rain fell in relentless sheets, each drop adding to the growing intensity of the moment. Huddled together, we listened to the continuous patter and exchanged stories about similar strange encounters in other camping trips. I couldn't help but feel a mix of irony and dread. How a simple rainstorm could heighten the terror of an already scary day. At that moment, I wondered if nature itself was part of this disturbing plot. The storm's fury subsided as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind an eerie calm that was almost worse than the rain. With the darkness of uncertainty looming, we revisited our earlier tracks and the cryptic notes we'd found. The realization that our decision to explore might have triggered something unforeseen weighed heavily on us. My mind raced with disturbing possibilities, and I silently vowed that no matter what, we'd uncover the truth behind these strange signs. Do you ever feel that a choice made in haste can unleash a chain of terrifying events? As we prepared to return to our car, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of determination and dread. Every step felt like a plunge into the unknown, each echo of our footsteps a reminder of the horror that was gradually unfolding. The early signs were now undeniable. Something was lurking in the shadows of Montana, and our simple camping trip was evolving into a nightmare of scary, disturbing proportions. The unresolved tension left us with more questions than answers, as if we were on the brink of a revelation that could change everything. Would you dare to continue on this path with us? The tension from our previous discoveries escalated as we moved deeper into the forest. I felt an unmistakable shift in the air, an oppressive weight that made every step a struggle. While retracing our path back from the abandoned park ranger station, I noticed an eerie glow emerging among the trees. It wasn't the soft light of dawn, but a disturbing, unnatural radiance that seemed to seep from the very ground. My heart pounded with both fear and curiosity, and I couldn't shake the thought that something malevolent was watching us. Have you ever experienced that gut-wrenching feeling that danger is lurking just around the corner? As we pressed on, the forest began to reveal more unsettling signs of intrusion. The once familiar sounds of nature were replaced by a series of bizarre, almost mechanical noises, metallic clicks, distant groans, and an occasional, unnerving silence that fell over us like a heavy shroud. I exchanged anxious glances with Sarah and Mark Thomas, each of us silently asking if we should turn back. Yet, an inexplicable compulsion pushed us forward, as if we were destined to uncover the root of this horror. Every rustle and whisper felt like a prelude to something truly disturbing, setting my nerves on edge. Soon enough, we stumbled upon an abandoned campsite that appeared far too recent to be mere remnants of past visitors. Scattered belongings, a half-burned fire pit, and cryptic symbols carved into nearby trees pointed to a deliberate act, a warning of sorts. I felt a mix of dread and incredulity as I scanned the area, realizing that these signs were too calculated to be random. The unsettling nature of the scene brought a chill that wasn't just from the cool Montana air. I wondered if we were now entangled in a dangerous web, with a threat that was both scary and undeniably real. In a moment of disturbing clarity, I noticed movement in the periphery, a flicker of motion that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Mark Thomas insisted it was nothing more than a trick of the light, but I knew deep down that it was something far more sinister. The forest itself seemed to breathe a warning, with every snapped twig and shifting shadow adding to the crescendo of my fear. I felt the undeniable presence of an unseen force that was orchestrating this nightmare. Each step we took was now shadowed by the terror of the unknown, leaving us with more questions than answers about who, or what, was stalking us. Our uneasy progress eventually led us to a narrow clearing, where the unsettling glow had grown brighter, revealing an old, rusted structure half consumed by nature. It resembled a forgotten outpost, and its presence stirred memories of local legends about secretive groups and unexplained phenomena in Montana's wilderness. As I cautiously approached the relic, I couldn't ignore the sensation that we were trespassing into forbidden territory. The air crackled with an electric intensity, a mix of raw fear and anticipation. It felt as if this abandoned structure was a beacon for the disturbing forces that had been trailing us all along. As dusk began to settle once again, the unsettling reality of our situation became impossible to ignore. I decided to take a moment alone by the structure, hoping that some quiet reflection might help me piece together the bizarre clues we'd encountered. The silence was broken only by the distant hum of what sounded like a generator, an incongruous element in such a remote location. In that eerie solitude, I felt a deep, unrelenting terror that transcended any ordinary fear. It was as if I were standing at the precipice of a horror movie, with each passing second deepening the disturbing sense that our lives were now in mortal danger. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the clearing, snapping me out of my contemplation. I bolted towards the sound, only to find that the broken remnants of an old wooden sign had toppled over near the structure. Inscribed on it were ominous warnings that I could barely decipher, cryptic messages that spoke of curses, abandonment, and a fate worse than death. My pulse raced as I realized that these were no idle scribbles, but deliberate messages meant to scare off any intruders. The disturbing clarity of the warning sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't help but feel that this encounter was only the beginning of a much darker chapter. Back with Sarah and in Mark Thomas, I shared my findings and the mounting dread that gripped me. Their expressions were a blend of skepticism and fear, mirroring my own internal turmoil. We debated our next move, whether to retreat and regroup or to confront the horror head-on. The conversation grew heated, punctuated by uneasy laughter and whispered fears about supernatural forces or human malevolence lurking behind every tree. Every passing moment only intensified the scary, disturbing atmosphere that had enveloped our once hopeful adventure, leaving us all questioning the sanity of our decision to press forward. With the chill of night settling in, we reluctantly decided to make camp near the eerie outpost, hoping that a brief respite would give us time to formulate a plan. As I settled into the darkness, the persistent sounds of the forest morphed into something far more menacing, a constant reminder that we were not alone. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hide a secret waiting to be unveiled. I couldn't shake the feeling that the threat was growing bolder with each passing minute. The horrifying reality was that our simple camping trip had transformed into a terrifying ordeal, one that promised no easy escape. Panic set in like a sudden storm as the night turned darker and the terror of our situation reached a breaking point. I awoke to frantic sounds and a palpable, bone-deep dread. The eerie outpost we had sought refuge near now seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy that threatened to consume us. In that moment, every instinct screamed to run, to escape this nightmare. With Sarah and Mark Thomas in tow, we made a split-second decision. It was time to flee. I remember the heart-pounding rush of adrenaline as I grabbed what little we could carry, feeling as if every second was a life-or-death countdown. Have you ever experienced such a stark moment where survival becomes your only thought? We bolted through the underbrush, the oppressive silence of the forest shattered by our desperate footsteps. Each rustle and snap of a twig sent shivers down my spine, as if the very trees were warning us to slow down. The moonlit path twisted and turned, making our escape a frantic race against an unseen enemy. Mark Thomas led the way with his unwavering determination, while Sarah clutched a weathered map, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and resolve. I could almost feel the grip of danger tightening around us, and every moment was drenched in the kind of horror that makes your heart race uncontrollably. Could you imagine having to decide in a heartbeat which way is safe? The chaos of our escape was punctuated by sudden obstacles that tested our nerves and our teamwork. At one point, we encountered a fallen tree blocking our path, its massive trunk illuminated by the faint glow of our headlights. We scrambled to move it, our hands trembling from both the cold and fear, while every shadow seemed to mock our efforts. The struggle was raw and desperate, filled with the kind of tension that turns a simple act into a terrifying ordeal. In that split moment, I wondered if we were truly capable of outrunning the malevolence that stalked us. It was a stark reminder that sometimes, escape is a matter of sheer survival against a backdrop of horror. As we pushed onward, the forest morphed into a labyrinth of twisting trails and deceptive quiet. Every step forward felt like a calculated risk, and the thought of being caught was as disturbing as it was real. I could sense that the danger was not just a figment of our imagination, but something actively pursuing us. The eerie sounds behind us grew louder, punctuated by distant echoes of a relentless force. My mind raced with vivid images of the abandoned outpost and the cryptic warnings that we'd encountered. In that grim moment, our escape was more than just physical. It was a mental battle against the overwhelming fear that threatened to paralyze us. Do you ever feel that every heartbeat is a battle between hope and terror? We soon found ourselves navigating a narrow trail that wound through a dense thicket of trees, where every rustle was a potential sign of our pursuer. The cold night air was filled with a disturbing mix of dread and urgency as we struggled to keep pace with the unseen menace. Sarah Ann's eyes darted back and forth, her grip on the map tightening as if it held the secret to our salvation. Mark Thomas kept a steady pace, his calm demeanor belying the tension that gripped us all. I felt like we were part of a terrifying chase scene from a horror film, where the stakes were our very lives. It was a surreal mix of fear and determination, urging us to push forward no matter how terrifying the road ahead might be. In a desperate bid to find a safe haven, we decided to veer off the main trail and head toward a distant ridge known to house an old ranger station. The journey was fraught with moments where the darkness seemed to close in, and every rustle of leaves became a harbinger of impending doom. I remember the sensation of cold sweat on my skin as I led the way, the fear mingling with a strange sense of purpose. The path was uneven and treacherous, yet the promise of shelter kept us moving. We talked in hushed tones, sharing whispered plans and encouragement that felt as fragile as our own hopes. Have you ever been caught in a situation where every step forward is a battle between fear and the need to survive? Our trek up the ridge was a blur of adrenaline and raw emotion. The old ranger station, barely visible in the distance, beckoned like a sanctuary amid the chaos. But as we drew nearer, the building's decrepit appearance only intensified our anxiety. The structure groaned under the weight of time and neglect, yet it promised a temporary reprieve from the horror chasing us. Inside, the dim light of a flickering lamp revealed dusty corridors and scattered remnants of a past long forgotten. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind through broken windows, contributed to an atmosphere that was both foreboding and strangely familiar. It felt like stepping into a memory of a nightmare I had never fully escaped. Once inside, we barricaded the door with whatever we could find, our hearts still pounding from the rush of escape. The confined space offered little comfort, but it was a momentary shield from the relentless pursuit outside. I sat on an old wooden bench, trying to catch my breath while the silence of the room contrasted sharply with the chaos of our flight. The ranger station, with its peeling paint and musty air, seemed to hold stories of its own, a history steeped in both pride and pain. I couldn't help but wonder if these walls had witnessed similar horrors in their past. In that fragile moment of stillness, I felt the full weight of our precarious situation, knowing that any wrong move could plunge us back into the terror of the unknown. As hours passed and the initial panic subsided, a fleeting calm settled over us. though it was laced with the persistent fear of what might come next. We listened intently to the distant sounds of the forest, each noise a potential threat lurking in the darkness. The tension was nearly tangible, a constant reminder that our escape was far from secure. In that heavy silence, I allowed myself a brief moment of reflection, recalling the chaotic journey from that eerie outpost to this fragile refuge. The horror of the night had imprinted itself on our souls, and I knew that our ordeal was far from over. Every passing second was a reminder that life and death hung in a delicate balance. As dawn crept over the horizon, a cold, grim reality began to set in. The ranger station that had once offered us a brief shelter now felt like a trap, its walls echoing with the mistakes of our past actions. I sat there, shivering both from the lingering chill and the weight of our decisions, as the events of the previous night replayed in my mind like a disturbing movie. The silence was deafening, broken only by my ragged breathing and the distant, ominous sounds of a forest that refused to let go of its secrets. Was this the moment when a simple misstep turned into a deadly mistake? In the fragile light of day, we realized that our escape had come at a tragic cost. The frantic flight from the eerie outpost had forced us into a series of desperate decisions, each one leaving a scar on our souls. I recalled the moment when a wrong turn on a seemingly safe path led us deeper into a labyrinth of horror. The regret was palpable, mingled with the ever-present fear that what we had unleashed might not be something we could ever outrun. Have you ever felt that every decision in the heat of terror can seem both necessary and catastrophically wrong? The landscape around the station had transformed into a surreal blend of beauty and despair, a reminder that nature's splendor could hide dark, disturbing secrets. The golden hues of the sunrise were at odds with the chilling memories of the night, and every ray of light seemed to cast more shadows than it dispelled. I moved cautiously through the dewy grass, each step resonating with the echo of a past error that we couldn't ignore. In that moment, I understood that our ordeal wasn't just about survival. It was about living with the consequences of a tragedy we'd unwittingly set in motion. Inside the station, the remnants of old files and faded photographs told a story of neglect, despair, and unhealed wounds. I found myself drawn to a tattered journal that lay on a rickety table, its pages filled with the haunting accounts of someone who had once faced similar horrors. As I flipped through the entries, each word resonated with a familiar fear, a fear that hinted at a cycle of mistakes doomed to repeat itself. Was it possible that our arrival had been foretold, that our actions were simply another verse in a recurring, disturbing saga? The realization struck me hard. The choices we made in those desperate moments were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger, terrifying narrative. The forest outside, with its rustling leaves and shifting light, seemed to whisper secrets of countless tragedies past, each one marked by the same deadly mistake. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had inadvertently stepped into a preordained trap, one where every decision led us further down a path of horror and inevitable loss. It felt like we were characters in a twisted tale that had been written long before we ever set foot in Montana. As I paced back and forth in the dim light of the station, the weight of our situation pressed down on me like a vice. Every creak of the wooden floor and every gust of wind through the broken windows amplified the sense of impending doom. Sarah and Mark Thomas were silent, each lost in their own thoughts and haunted by the memories of our frantic escape. The atmosphere was thick with regret and the realization that, in our bid for survival, we had crossed a line from which there was no return. Have you ever felt trapped by your own choices, where every breath you take is a reminder of the horror you unleashed? With the day progressing slowly, we gathered our meager belongings and prepared to leave the station, the tragic chapter of our journey casting a long shadow over our every move. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the land itself was mourning our fate. The journey ahead was uncertain, a path littered with the remnants of our past errors and the persistent threat of an unseen horror. I glanced at my friends, our eyes reflecting a shared sorrow and an unspoken understanding that our escape might only be temporary. Was our desperate attempt to outrun our mistakes nothing more than a prelude to further tragedy? As we resumed our trek along a narrow, winding trail, a sense of foreboding clung to us like a second skin. The once comforting sounds of nature now seemed charged with a sinister energy, each whisper of wind and rustle of leaves echoing the chorus of our collective guilt. I couldn't help but feel that the forest was not just a backdrop for our ordeal, but an active participant in our tragic tale. Every step forward was a reminder that the horror was far from over and that the consequences of our actions might be waiting just around the bend. Have you ever realized too late that some mistakes are too deep to ever fully escape? With the tragic weight of our choices bearing down on us, we pressed on into the unknown, our hearts heavy with the knowledge that the nightmare was far from over. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, and every new sound in the distance rekindled the fear that we might be drawing closer to a fate worse than we could ever imagine. I felt an unsettling mix of resolve and resignation as I led my friends into the uncertain future, a future where every moment teetered on the edge of another deadly mistake. And as the forest seemed to murmur its dark secrets, I couldn't help but wonder, would this final stretch lead to our redemption or seal our tragic destiny?